Chapter 532. Among the three grand elders, the third elder was always thinking about the sect. He was the most approachable and had no selfish motive. The first elder was very strong, overbearing, and always stood by his words. However, he had no tolerance for others. Only the second elder was like a peacemaker. He was always smiling and kind to others. He handled things smoothly and flawlessly. When the first elder and the third elder were at loggerheads, only the second elder would be able to calm them down. No matter how dissatisfied the two of them were, in front of the second elder, they still had to give him some face. Forget it, let's listen to the second elder. This matter will be handled by the sect leader when he returns. Jing Ruofeng's sharp gaze swept over Lin Feng. At that time, let's see who dares to protect him. Chao Ying remained silent. Just as Jing Ruofeng had said, even if the sect leader were to personally judge the matter, based on the clues that the Shuntian disciples had found, Lin Feng would most likely be the mastermind behind the murder. Guan Chongfeng smiled. Okay, let's leave this matter as it is for the time being. Everyone, let's stop arguing. With that, he looked at Lin Feng and said, Lin Feng, because the suspicion on you has not been cleared, you should not leave the Shuntian sect for the time being. We will also send people to monitor your every move. I hope you can understand this point. Lin Feng was silent for a moment before replying, Okay. Guan Chongfeng nodded in satisfaction. The sect leader should be back in a few days, so you don't have to wait too long. You can rest assured about this point. When the sect leader is done with this matter, no one will restrict your freedom. During this period, just bear with it for a while. Disciple understands. Lin Feng said. Good, you can go back. When the sect leader returns, we will send people to invite you. Guan Chongfeng waved his hand. Lin Feng cupped his hands. Disciple will take his leave then. He turned around and swept his gaze over the crowd. Without saying anything, he lifted his feet and left. However, the heavens did not fulfill one's wishes. Lin Feng did not want to cause any more trouble, but trouble came knocking on his door. Wait. Lin Rong, who was ranked 6th among the true disciples, blocked Lin Feng's path. Lin Feng looked at him indifferently. What's the matter? Lin Rong sneered. Lin Feng, did you forget something? Do you want me to remind you? The peak leaders and the core disciples wore excited looks on their faces as they recalled something. Jing Ruofeng, Guan Chongfeng, and Chao Ying looked at Lin Rong in confusion, not knowing what he meant. Don't worry, my memory isn't as bad as you think, Lin Feng said indifferently. But are you sure you want to fight me to the death? What? A battle of life and death? Chao Ying was shocked. Jing Ruofeng also looked at Lin Feng and Lin Rong in astonishment. When did they start a death match? Guan Chongfeng's smile did not fade as his gaze moved back and forth between Lin Feng and Lin Rong. The interest in his eyes grew stronger. Chao Ying frowned and said in a low voice, Lin Feng, Lin Rong, I don't care why you started a death match. In short, I'm telling you now that the death match between you two must be cancelled immediately. Hearing this, Lin Feng did not say anything, but Lin Rong asked unhappily, Why? Lin Feng's question is pardonable. You've been a true disciple for hundreds of thousands of years, and you're still asking such a low-level question. Fine, since you want to know the reason, I'll tell you. Chao Ying's face was gloomy. You're a true disciple and Lin Feng can be considered half a true disciple. The sect rules state that Shuntian sect's true disciples, including quasi-true disciples, are forbidden from killing or injuring each other. They are allowed to spar, but a deathmatch is forbidden. Those who violate this rule will have their cultivation crippled and become immortal. Don't tell me you've forgotten about this? Hearing this, everyone's eyes widened. Only now did they remember that there was such a rule in the sect rules. In other words, after Lin Feng became a quasi-true disciple, he would no longer be threatened by Lin Rong. After all, a true disciple was not like a core disciple. To any sect, a true disciple was a treasure that could not be ignored. If such a treasure were to die in a death match or be killed by one of their own, it would undoubtedly be a huge loss. This kind of loss, even if placed in the hands of a superpower, would be extremely painful, not to mention the Shantian sect. Although Jing Ruofeng could not wait for Lin Feng to be killed by Lin Rong, there was indeed such a rule in the sect. As the Grand Elder, he could not violate the sect rules and force the two into a death match. He might not be able to bear the consequences of such a thing. Lin Rong was speechless. Chao Ying calmly said, "You can leave. I can treat this matter as if it never happened. If you dare to do this again, I can only deal with it according to the sect rules." Lin Rong clenched his fists tightly and looked at Lin Feng with extreme unwillingness. He was really unwilling. He clearly had the opportunity to kill Lin Feng fair and square, but Lin Feng had become a quasi-true disciple, causing all his plans and fantasies to fall through. "Oh right, I almost forgot." Lin Rong's eyes suddenly lit up. "When I agreed to a death match with Lin Feng, he hadn't become a quasi-true disciple yet, right? Lin Feng became a quasi-true disciple 10 to 20 days after the death match with Lin Feng, so this sect rule should not apply to him." Thinking of this, a smile appeared on his face again, and he confidently said, "Third Elder, I still have something to say." Chao Ying solemnly said, "If you still want to talk about this matter, then I advise you not to open your mouth. Otherwise, Third Elder, it's not too late for you to listen to what I have to say first." Lin Rong interrupted Chao Ying's words and did not care about Chao Ying's increasingly gloomy expression. He coldly smiled and said, "Although Lin Feng has become a quasi-true disciple, the death match that I agreed to with Lin Feng was before he became a quasi-true disciple. Therefore, our death match is not within the scope of the sect rules." He straightened his chest and fearlessly looked at Chao Ying without the slightest intention of backing down. That's right, when they agreed to a death match, Lin Feng was only a core disciple. Many people knew about this point. Almost every core disciple of the weapon refining peak knew about this matter, and any one of them would be able to get the answer. "Even if what you say is true, so what?" Chao Ying frowned and said, "No matter when you agreed to a death match, from the moment Lin Feng became a quasi-true disciple, this agreement was null and void." However, Lin Rong shook his head and said, "Third Elder, you are wrong. The sect rules do not restrict this situation. Therefore, my death match with Lin Feng can continue and there is nothing inappropriate about it." Miao Miao and the other true disciples could not help but secretly shake their heads. This Lin Rong was too daring. He actually dared to take the initiative to challenge the Grand Elder. However, Lin Rong's backing was the sect leader. It was said that he had some relationship with the sect leader. With the sect leader's support, he had the confidence to challenge the Grand Elder. As long as it was not too excessive, no one would dare to make an issue out of it. Chao Ying was about to retaliate when Jing Ruofeng interrupted, "Third Elder, I think that Lin Rong's words are reasonable." He smiled faintly. "Just now, you did not allow me to deal with Lin Feng and left it to the sect leader to deal with him personally. This point is reasonable. However, the death match between Lin Feng and Lin Rong is not within the scope of the sect rules. What else do you have to say?" There was a trace of complacency in his tone. He had returned all the anger he had suffered back to Chao Ying. He was quite happy in his heart. "First Elder, could it be that you do not care about the future of the Shantian sect?" Chao Ying looked at Jing Ruofeng in disappointment. In the past, although he felt that Jing Ruofeng was extremely tyrannical and narrow-minded, he still cared about the Heaven Ascension sect. But now, he had to deny this thought. If Jing Ruofeng really cared about the Heaven Ascension sect, he wouldn't have wanted to kill such an outstanding genius. Jing Ruofeng said indifferently, "Whether I care or not, the sect leader will naturally know. There is no need for you to judge." In front of them, Lin Feng sighed and shook his head inwardly. Third Elder. The moment he spoke, he attracted everyone's attention. He sincerely said to Chowing, "Third Elder, thank you for protecting me. In the entire upper echelon of the Shuntian sect, only you, the Third Elder, are recognized and respected by me, Lin Feng." Chowing felt gratified in his heart. His efforts had not been wasted. At the very least, from Lin Feng's words, he could tell that Lin Feng was not an ingrate. Lin Feng's gaze swept across the crowd. "Finally," he said, "just as Lin Rong said, the life and death duel between me and him was agreed upon before I became a successor disciple. It is not within the scope of the sect's rules. I am very grateful that you spoke up for me, but not everyone is as reasonable as you. Therefore, this battle between me and Lin Rong is inevitable. No one can stop it. You don't need to say anything more." With Lin Rong's strength, even if he stood still and allowed Lin Rong to attack him, Lin Rong might not be able to injure him. What did he have to fear in such a life-and-death battle? Since Lin Rong was so eager to have a life-and-death battle with him, he did not mind fulfilling his wish. Why waste his breath? "Lin Feng, you." Chowing looked at Lin Feng with a complicated expression. He never would have thought that Lin Feng would actually say such a thing. However, since even Lin Feng, the person involved, had said such a thing, what could he, as an outsider, say? There was no reason for him to stop Lin Rong. Letting out a sigh, Chowing seemed to have aged a lot in an instant. He mocked himself, "Forget it, if you want to fight then fight. I'm old and can't control you youngsters." Lin Feng also sighed in his heart. This was a respectable old man, but some things were destined to happen, and no one could stop them. "I'm sorry, but you will soon know that Lin Rong's insistence on having a life-and-death battle was a foolish decision," Lin Feng said with some shame in his heart. Chapter 533. Regardless of who won or lost, it would be a huge loss to the Shuntian sect. But what was done could not be undone. No one could stop it, not even Chowing. As for Lin Feng accepting Lin Rong's challenge, some were confused, while some were relieved. However, they could not see anything from their faces. Jing Ruofeng smiled faintly. "Not bad, you look like a man now." Was he praising Lin Feng? Obviously not. If he looked like a man now, didn't that mean he was not like a man just now? Lin Feng did not argue with him. He said calmly, "Those who know me know that I have a habit. It is not impossible for me to accept a challenge, but there is a condition." "What condition?" "Let's hear it." Before Jing Ruofeng could speak, Guan Chongfeng asked with interest. Lin Feng glanced at him and said, "My request is very simple. I hope that the three Supreme Elders can swear in public that no matter how Lin Rong and I perform in the life-and-death battle, you will not interfere with the life-and-death battle for any reason. If I die, it is my fate. However, if I am lucky enough to kill Lin Rong, you will not use this reason to attack me." As he spoke, he looked at the three Grand Elders with a burning gaze, especially Jing Ruofeng. "This request is not excessive. Can the three Grand Elders do it?" The 9 Peak Masters and the true disciples looked at each other with a hint of suspicion. The 3 Elders might not be clear about Lin Feng's request, but the 9 Peak Masters were very familiar with it. Before the challenge between Lin Feng and El Jueshin Duo Kun, didn't Lin Feng force Yi Changtian to swear such an oath? Even Long Hua, Zhang Lai, Yen Chao and the rest had to swear such an oath to allow the challenge to continue. How similar was this scene to the one back then? Suddenly, a strange feeling arose in their hearts. Jing Ruofeng said, "That's right, this request is reasonable. We can satisfy you." Guan Changfeng also nodded, "I have no objections." "Fine, let's make an oath." Chowing sighed. Lin Feng said, "Wait, I just said that it was a public vow, so..." Jing Ruofeng frowned and said in a low voice, "What other requests do you have? Just say them all at once." "No." Lin Feng said, "That's all." Jing Ruofeng took a deep breath and turned to look at Lin Rong. "Where do you want to have the death match?" Hearing this, a cruel smile surfaced on Lin Rong's face. Weapon crafting peak, star plucking platform. He had chosen this place for a very deep reason. Back then, Eljuashin Doken had fought a battle to the death with Lin Feng here. In the end, he was killed by Lin Feng, causing a series of subsequent events. Strictly speaking, there was no deep hatred between him and Lin Feng. Lin Feng had never provoked him. However, from the moment he agreed to help Yi Changtian deal with Lin Feng, he and Lin Feng were already on opposite side. It was the kind that would not rest until one of them was dead. However, now that Yi Changtian was dead, and so was Eljuashin Doken, he was the only one left alive. Therefore, he wanted to kill Lin Feng in front of countless people, in front of everyone, at the place where Lin Feng was once famous, at the place where this incident started. Lin Feng killed Eljuashin Doken at the star-plucking platform, then hired assassins to assassinate Yi Changtian. Now, he wanted to kill Lin Feng at the star-plucking platform. Just thinking about it made him a little impatient. Alright, then let's go now. Jing Ruofeng was swift and decisive. He did not want to waste any time. Since he had made a decision, Guan Changfeng and Chao Ying could not refute it. The true disciples and the various peak masters could only respectfully obey his orders. Thus, a large group of people quickly flew towards the star-plucking platform of the weapon refining peak. Besides that, Jing Ruofeng also sent people to inform the core disciples of the various main peaks about this matter. Didn't Lin Feng ask him to swear in front of everyone? He might as well gather everyone together and swear an oath. Not only could he shut Lin Feng up, but he could also let Lin Feng be killed by Lin Feng in front of so many disciples. This way, after Lin Feng died, he would not be able to escape a second time where his reputation would be ruined. It was extremely vicious. When they heard that Lin Feng and Lin Rong were going to have a deathmatch, all the core disciples were shocked. Everyone who cared about Lin Feng, including Jing Ting and Huang Wenbing, immediately rushed to the star-plucking platform. The remaining core disciples of the main peaks could not bear to miss this opportunity to broaden their horizons. Immediately, they formed groups and headed towards the star-plucking platform as fast as they could. Bright Moon House. What will come will come. The deathmatch between Lin Feng and Lin Rong has finally begun. Nan Yang sighed. Although he had an indescribable confidence in Lin Feng, he could not help but be a little worried. In 3 years, can Lin Feng really grow to the point where he can stand shoulder to shoulder with Lin Rong? Lin Rong was at the early stage of the 6th stage of the Earth Realm. Lin Feng was also at the early stage of the 6th stage of the Earth Realm. However, there was a difference between the two. Lin Rong had been at the early stage of the 6th stage of the Earth Realm for hundreds of thousands of years. With his talent, he might have already reached the critical point of a breakthrough. At any time, he might have an epiphany and break through to the middle stage of the 6th stage of the Earth Realm. Even if he was not invincible in the early stage of the 6th stage of the Earth Realm, he would definitely be ranked among the top. Lin Rong had only been at the early stage of the 6th stage of the Earth Realm for 3 years. Although his talent was monstrous, 3 years was too short. For most people, it could be said that it would pass in the blink of an eye. To make a breakthrough and greatly increase one's strength in 3 years was simply an impossible task. The only thing that made them feel slightly relieved was that Lin Feng had never done anything that he was not confident in. Since he was willing to have a deathmatch now, he should have some confidence in winning. Others might not be able to make any progress after spending 3 years, but a monstrous talent like Lin Feng could not be judged by common sense. Mo Zhu said, "We should believe in Lin Feng. 3 years ago, he was able to kill Eljuashin Duo-kun. 3 years later, he might be able to kill Lin Rong." Sun Yu, Lu Hu, and the others also said, "Yes, we should believe in him." In fact, they did not really have that much confidence in Lin Feng, but other than using this method to persuade themselves, there was no other way to reduce the worry in their hearts. At this time, Nanyang noticed Huang Wenbing behind them and asked in surprise, Huang Wenbing, look at you. Why aren't you worried about Lin Feng at all? Huang Wenbing looked at Nanyang in surprise and coughed to cover it up. Then, he pretended to be worried and said, Who said I'm not worried? Look at my face, it's so haggard. See, it's all because I'm worried about boss. That's why I'm like this. Nono listened and kept rolling her eyes. Nanyang looked at Huang Wenbing suspiciously. Although the other party's acting was very good, he still felt that something was wrong, as if something was missing. However, he could not figure out what the problem was. In the end, he could only sigh and nod. Yes, Lin Feng is always making people worry. How could he have guessed that Huang Wenbing was trying to hold back his laughter, almost to the point of spasming? Lin Rong? That bastard actually dares to engage in a life-and-death battle with boss. Even if he wants to die, he doesn't have to do this, does he? Huang Wenbing doubted Lin Rong's intelligence. Even El Jueshin Pang Long and the assassin leader from the Five Elements' secret ground were killed by boss. How dare he, a mere Earth Stage 6 expert, provoke boss? In the entire Shuntian sect, there were only 4 people who could truly threaten Lin Feng. They were the 3 Grand Elders, Jing Ruofeng, Guan Changfeng, Chaoing, and the extremely mysterious sect leader, Lord Kong Yuan. Other than the 4 of them, who else could threaten Lin Feng? Moreover, if Lin Feng went all out, the 4 perfect earthly Saint Realm experts would probably suffer a great loss and might even die on the spot. No one understood the terror of Berserk better than Lin Feng. It was precisely because he understood it very well that Lin Feng didn't dare to use it lightly. Soon, a group of people arrived at the star-plucking platform. At this time, the star-plucking platform was filled with a sea of people. The core disciples from the various peaks had almost drowned out the group of elders, peak masters, and several true disciples. However, they were different after all. Whether it was strength, aura, or temperament, they were all outstanding. Standing in the crowd, they were like cranes in a flock of chickens, easily recognizable. Jing Ruofeng, Guan Changfeng, Chaoing, and the rest did not go back on their words. After the core disciples arrived, they swore an oath in front of everyone, just like Yi Changtian 3 years ago. As for the 9 peak masters, it didn't matter if they swore or not. After all, with their strength, they didn't have the qualifications to interfere in the battle between Lin Feng and Lin Rong. However, in order to calm Lin Feng's heart, they followed the rules and swore an oath one by one. It was almost exactly the same as the oath they swore 3 years ago. After everyone swore, Jing Ruofeng said, "We have fulfilled your request. Can we start the life and death battle now?" Lin Feng looked around and said calmly, "Yes." Lin Rong laughed out loud and flew up to the star-plucking platform. He couldn't wait and said, "Come, fight with me." His loud voice reverberated around the star-plucking platform. Immediately, everyone fell silent, making the surroundings fall silent. "Actually, I have long wanted to experience the power of your true disciple. Thank you for giving me this opportunity." Lin Feng smiled faintly and did not show any signs of weakness. He tiptoed lightly and flew up like a bird. After Lin Feng landed, Lin Rong looked at Jing Ruofeng, indicating that he could announce the start of the life and death battle. Jing Ruofeng did not make him wait long. After the 2 of them indicated that they were ready, he slowly said, "Let's begin." As soon as these 3 words came out, the surrounding air froze and the atmosphere became heated. The surrounding disciples, the 6 true disciples, the peak masters, and the elders all looked at the platform with anticipation. What they didn't know was that not far away from the Shuntian sect, there were 4 or 5 figures rushing towards the Shuntian sect from different places. The fastest one would only need a short moment to reach the Shuntian sect, while the rest would probably arrive within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. These people came from different places and had different identities, but they were coincidentally rushing over at the same time. Furthermore, each and every one of them had an extraordinary identity. Chapter 534. Lin Feng, I heard that your talent is terrifying. Whenever they talk about you, they can't help but exclaim how powerful you are. But I really can't see how powerful you are. Lin Rong didn't seem to be in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he mocked. Lin Feng said indifferently, whether I'm powerful or not, you'll find out soon enough. Lin Rong curled his lips in disdain. I'm not interested in whether you're powerful or not. I only know that you're going to die soon. Then let's do it. Lin Feng couldn't be bothered to argue with him. Are you in such a hurry to die? Lin Rong's smile was brilliant, but there was a hint of cruelty in it. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish. As his voice fell, he prepared to make a move. But then, Lin Feng opened his mouth. Wait. Lin Rong stopped and mocked. Why? Are you regretting it now? Lin Feng shook his head. I'm not regretting it. I just want to remind you. Remind me of what? Lin Rong frowned. You'd better take out your weapon. Although you're still not my opponent with a weapon, at least you'll have a little more hope. Lin Feng said seriously. He wasn't lying. He was really reminding Lin Rong that he had absolute confidence in killing his opponent. Even if Lin Rong was fully armed and went all out, he wouldn't be his opponent, let alone an empty-handed Lin Rong. Lin Feng wasn't even interested in making a move against such a Lin Rong. Defeating such an opponent wasn't something to be proud of. Arrogant. In the distance, Jing Ruofeng heard Lin Feng's words and couldn't help but sneer. Lin Rong's answer was exactly the same as Jing Ruofeng's. He laughed out loud. Lin Feng, I've heard that you're arrogant, but I didn't expect you to be this arrogant. I wouldn't dare. Lin Feng said indifferently. In terms of arrogance, I can't compare to you. Originally, I was going to give you some space to struggle before deciding the outcome. However, since you are in such a hurry to die, I will fulfill your wish. Lin Rong laughed and took out his weapon. It was a long, black whip. The surface of the whip was covered with curved barbs. Each barb had a strange glow. One could imagine how much pain and damage those barbs would cause if they were hit by the whip. After taking out his weapon, Lin Rong's expression became more serious. He suddenly moved. The speed of an early-stage Earth Stage 6 was fully unleashed. A moment ago, he was still over 30 meters away, but in the next moment, he had already advanced 40 to 50 meters. In the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Lin Feng. Pa! He waved his right hand, and the whip tore through the air with great force, producing a sharp and ear-piercing sound. It followed a beautiful arc and swept towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng's eyes remained calm, like a deep valley in the mountains. Swish! His figure disappeared just as the whip was about to touch his body. At this moment, the speed of a late-stage Earth Stage 6 was fully displayed. Even without using any law techniques, Lin Feng could easily kill Lin Rong. The difference between them was too great. One was at the peak of the late-stage Earth Stage 7, only a fine line away from the early-stage Earth Stage 7. The other was only at the early-stage Earth Stage 6. If Lin Feng wanted to kill Lin Rong, it would be as easy as drinking water. Whoosh! The whip missed, causing a gust of wind. Lin Rong's eyes narrowed as he looked at Lin Feng in shock. At this moment, Lin Feng's speed stunned him. Near the star-plucking platform, Jing Ruofeng, Guan Chongfeng, and Chao Ying, the three Grand Elders, were also stunned. They looked at Lin Feng in shock. The core disciples, peak masters, and elders were full of admiration for Lin Feng. They couldn't see how powerful Lin Feng was, but they knew that Lin Feng easily dodged Lin Rong's attack. For an expert who had just broken through to the early-stage Earth Stage 6, it was rare to be able to dodge a direct attack from an expert who had broken through to the early-stage Earth Stage 6 for hundreds of thousands of years. Just this point alone was something to be proud of. What law technique is this? Lin Rong's movements slowed down as he squinted his eyes. Obviously, He thought that Linfeng's normal speed was the speed of a law technique. However, Linfeng wasn't obligated to answer his doubts. Linfeng said indifferently, "Do you still want to continue?" "Humph." Lin Rong snorted, "Why not? Although I don't know where you learned such a powerful law technique that allowed you to dodge my attack, I don't believe that you can dodge it every time." After he finished speaking, he attacked again. This time, he was serious. Swift agility. Adept curse. Lin Rong used two skills of the law almost at the same time. Not only did his speed soar, which was comparable to the speed of an ordinary expert of the 6th stage of the Earth realm, but the destructive power of the long whip also increased tremendously. Wherever the long whip passed, tiny dark cracks would appear. Those were space cracks. Bang! As the long whip lashed out, the surrounding space trembled slightly. Linfeng looked at Lin Rong in shock. He was surprised by Lin Rong's strength. However, this kind of attack was far from enough to do him any harm. Linfeng was one of the best at fighting above his level. He didn't know if there was anyone better at fighting above his level than him, but he was sure that Lin Rong wasn't at his level. Even if he was only at the early stage of the 6th stage of the Earth realm, Lin Rong wouldn't be able to hurt him, not to mention that he was already at the late stage of the 6th stage of the Earth realm. Whoosh! It was still a simple dodge, but the destructive attack missed. The long whip lost its target and finally hit the ground. Boom! A loud sound came from the star-picking platform. Then, the entire platform shook violently. The weak light screen on the ground suddenly shattered. Adept curse. Lin Rong turned around and lashed out again. He obviously didn't want to rest. He wanted to take down Linfeng in the shortest time possible. A sharp sound came from behind. Linfeng dodged again. Just like that, the two of them went back and forth for more than 10 rounds. Lin Rong couldn't do anything to Linfeng. On the contrary, from their appearances, Linfeng looked the same as before, while Lin Rong was in a sorry state. "Linfeng, do you only know how to dodge?" Lin Rong scolded in exasperation. "If you have the guts, fight me head-on." Linfeng stopped dodging. He paused for a moment and smiled. "Okay, as you wish." Lin Rong was delighted. He was afraid that Linfeng would go back on his words. Just as Linfeng finished speaking, he lashed out at Linfeng. Adept curse. Facing the fierce attack with a trace of cold and gloomy aura, Linfeng opened his right hand and clenched it into a fist, punching out abruptly. Facing Lin Rong's terrifying attack, he actually met it with his bare hands. This scene caused everyone to be shocked. "This kid is really courting death," Jing Ruofeng sneered. His words were full of mockery. Guan Changfeng shook his head secretly. Clearly, he didn't agree with Linfeng's actions. Chao Ying frowned deeply. Linfeng is too arrogant. Only Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, and Nono didn't change their expressions. Instead, they smiled faintly. When Lin Rong provoked Linfeng to fight him head-on, they knew that Lin Rong was going to be unlucky. When he saw that Linfeng was really going to fight him head-on, and with his bare hands at that, a sinister smile appeared on Lin Rong's face. It was as if he could already see Linfeng being whipped into a bloody mess, or even being beaten into a bloody mist. This moment felt as long as a century. Everyone held their breath. Boom! Finally, Linfeng's fist landed on the long whip. However, the following scene was completely different from what everyone had imagined. Originally, they thought that Linfeng should be vomiting blood and flying backward. Instead, he stood firmly on the ground. It was as if his feet were rooted to the ground. He didn't move an inch. Meanwhile, Lin Rong, who they were optimistic about, screamed in agony. Immediately, he vomited blood and flew away. The long whip in his hand even slipped out of his hand. If one looked closely, they would find that Lin Rong's right hand was almost completely crippled. His bones were broken, and his flesh was badly mangled. The white bones were covered with a thin layer of flesh and blood, which made him look strangely miserable. Can't even withstand a single blow. For some reason, such an absurd thought crazily popped up in their minds. In front of Lin Feng, this usually arrogant, direct disciple couldn't even withstand an ordinary blow with his bare hands. Everyone was stupefied. Even the three Grand Elders' minds became dizzy. They could not quite understand the situation before their eyes. One was a veteran direct disciple, one was a quasi-direct disciple. One held a rank 6 sacred weapon in his hand. Moreover, it was a rank 6 sacred weapon with extraordinary power that was personally selected by the sect master. The other was barehanded and had nothing in his hand. This kind of exchange should not have any suspense. But when it came to Lin Feng, the outcome was reversed. In front of Lin Feng, the powerful Lin Rong was actually unable to withstand a single blow. Could it be that Lin Rong was so weak that he could not withstand a single blow? On this point, those core disciples who had been bullied by Lin Rong before clearly would not agree. Since it was not that Lin Rong was weak, then it could only prove that Lin Feng was too powerful. Cough, 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 cough. Lin Rong struggled to stand up. As he coughed blood, he looked at Lin Feng in horror. In that moment of exchange, he realized how terrifying Lin Feng was. Only then did he realize how laughable his previous provocation was. It was no exaggeration to say that the feeling that Lin Feng gave him was even more terrifying than the direct disciple Miao Miao. At least, he could withstand dozens of blows from Miao Miao. And even if he lost, he would not lose so miserably. But when he exchanged blows with Lin Feng, he was seriously injured in one blow and lost most of his combat strength. In the previous dozens of blows, Lin Feng was not serious at all. He had been dodging his attacks. Strictly speaking, they had only really exchanged blows once. And just this one time, he was almost killed in an instant. At this moment, he was afraid. He was afraid that Lin Feng would really kill him in this life and death battle. Lin Feng clearly didn't know what Lin Rong was thinking. When Lin Rong struggled to stand up, he was ready to launch a second attack. He had already hidden his strength as much as possible, but he did not expect Lin Rong to be so weak. He could not even block 1/5 of his strength. It must be known that he had not used any law skills. He had not even used 1% of his strength. But even so, Lin Rong was still unable to block his attack. This made him somewhat disappointed. "It's over." He slowly raised his hand and indifferently said, "Remember, don't provoke me again in your next life." Chapter 535. Lin Feng indifferently walked towards Lin Rong, causing the latter's face to turn even paler, extremely terrified. Gulp. He wanted to speak, but the moment he opened his mouth, blood flowed out from his throat. He forcefully swallowed it and stammered with difficulty, "Spare me." At this moment, he was like a dog, wagging his tail and begging for mercy. Where was the prestige of a legacy disciple? But Lin Feng did not stop because of his words. Lin Feng's footsteps were neither fast nor slow, getting closer and closer to him, his expression as calm as ever. If not for Lin Feng's strength being strong enough, Lin Feng would have long become an ice-cold corpse. Now that Lin Rong had lost, he wanted to beg for mercy. How could there be such a good thing in the world? Lin Feng was not an extremely evil person and never took the initiative to provoke others. But he was also not a kind person who would silently endure being bullied. Seeing that Lin Feng did not stop at all and was getting closer and closer, Lin Rong finally panicked. He panicked and retreated a few steps. Losing his balance, he fell down and could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Immediately after, he gasped for breath. His breathing was extremely uneven. Seeing that Lin Feng was about to make a move, Lin Rong was terrified to the extreme. Finally, he could not help but look at the three Grand Elders with a pleading gaze. At this moment, everyone's breathing became heavy. Could it be that this legacy disciple, whose name had spread for hundreds of thousands of years, was going to fall? They clearly remembered that before Lin Feng and Lin Rong's life and death battle, the three Grand Elders, various peak masters, elders, and several legacy disciples had all sworn an oath that they would not interfere in the life and death battle between Lin Feng and Lin Rong. Now that it had only been a short while, that oath was still vivid in their minds. Even the most shameless person could not possibly violate an oath so quickly, right? Just as the many core disciples thought, the three Grand Elders were at a loss for words and were extremely conflicted in their hearts. If they had known that this would happen, they would not have made such an oath. Chowing was fine, but Jing Ruofeng and Guan Chongfeng were clearly very regretful. They had a feeling that Lin Feng had actually dug a big hole for them by forcing them to swear an oath. Right now, they were right in front of the pit. If they took a step forward, they would fall into the pit. However, they had no choice but to enter. Others might not know about Lin Rong's identity, but these three Grand Elders were very clear about it. In terms of influence, achievements, and importance to the Shuntian sect, Miao Miao was undoubtedly many times more important than Lin Rong. In terms of character and morality, Miao Miao was much better than Lin Rong. But in terms of importance to the sect master, Miao Miao, the first successor disciple, was not as important as Lin Rong. Even the position of the three Grand Elders in the sect master's heart could not be compared to Lin Rong. Lin Rong did not have any background, but his identity was not ordinary. This was because he was the child of one of sect leader Kong Yuan's best friends. However, that best friend had died in a battle while saving Kong Yuan. How could Kong Yuan not value the orphan of his best friend and savior? In Kong Yuan's heart, Lin Rong was no different from his own son. In fact, his status might even surpass his own. Thus, Lin Rong could not die. If Lin Rong died, the sect master would be enraged. At that time, no one would be able to withstand the sect master's wrath. No matter how unwilling Jing Ruofeng and Guan Chongfeng were, they had no choice but to speak up and stop Lin Feng from killing Lin Rong. Compared to the sect master's wrath, what did losing a little face count for? Even though his heart was filled with grievances, Jing Ruofeng still opened his mouth with difficulty. Just as Lin Feng was about to strike, he shouted, "Wait!" Hearing this, Lin Feng turned his head and looked at Jing Ruofeng with a smile that did not look like a smile. "Grand Elder, have you forgotten the oath you made just now? Do you need me to remind you again?" In those casual words there was a hint of sarcasm. Could it be that the Shuntian sect's Grand Elder was going to violate his oath in less than an incense's time? "Lin Feng, don't go too far." Jing Ruofeng's face was incomparably gloomy as he said coldly. Lin Feng said indifferently, "Then I would like to ask, how am I going too far?" Without waiting for Jing Ruofeng to speak, he took a step forward and looked at Jing Ruofeng with a questioning gaze. "I originally did not want to kill him and gave him a chance. I did not immediately agree to the life and death battle, but what about him? He provoked me again and again, bullied me, and even tried to kill me. If not for my strength, I'm afraid the person who would be dead right now would be me. Just based on this, how am I going too far by killing him? As for you, Grand Elder, you first bullied the weak and attacked me for no reason. Then, you forced me to agree to the life and death battle with Lin Rong. I did not say anything and only made you all swear an oath. How am I going too far? Speak, how am I going too far?" Even a clay figurine would have some temper. Lin Feng was not a saint. After suffering so many grievances, he naturally could not keep it in his heart. When the surrounding people heard this, they could not help but frown. They looked at the three Grand Elders suspiciously, especially Jing Ruofeng, who was at the front. Not to mention Lin Feng himself, even these outsiders felt a little indignant for Lin Feng after hearing about Lin Feng's suffering. As for Huang Wenbing, Jing Ting, and Nono, their gazes became unfriendly. A trace of resentment towards Jing Ruofeng grew in their hearts. Faced with Lin Feng's questioning gaze and words, Jing Ruofeng frowned and was speechless. Although he was very domineering, It was not good for him to lose his temper in front of so many people. Chao Ying smiled bitterly and sighed. With a complicated expression, he said, Lin Feng, we know that you have suffered a lot, but Lin Rong's identity is really special. If you kill him, the sect master will be furious. At that time, not only us grand elders will suffer, but you will also suffer the sect master's anger. At this time, Huang Wenbing finally could not help but explode. He sneered and said, Special identity? Do you think that just because he has a special identity, he can go against my boss without any scruples? Does he have special privileges just because he has a special identity? Only he is allowed to kill, but no one is allowed to kill him? Boss, just kill that guy. If the sect master really wants to deal with you because of that guy, we don't need such a sect. At most, we will leave the sect before the sect master returns. He did not care about the ugly looks on everyone's faces and said fearlessly. Lin Feng shook his head at Huang Wenbing. Wenbing, Elder Chao has good intentions. Don't misunderstand. Then, he said to Chao Ying, Elder Chao, I know that you have my best interests at heart, but some things cannot be analyzed from a purely rational point of view. Perhaps the sect master will really deal with me after this, but even so, I still want to kill Lin Rong. If he does not die, I will not be at ease. Moreover, in a death match, life and death are up to the heavens. If he dies, it only means that he is destined to die in my hands. The sect master has no reason to make an issue out of this. You sigh. Chao Ying smiled bitterly and shook his head. Forget it, kill him if you want. I won't say anything more. With that, Chao Ying closed his eyes and no longer asked about this matter. Jing Ruofeng shouted, Lin Feng, are you really going to be so stubborn? The one who is stubborn is you. Lin Feng suddenly turned his head and stared at Jing Ruofeng. His gaze was bone-chilling. The reason why Lin Rong ended up like this is all because of you. If not for you, Lin Rong would not have had the chance to engage in a deathmatch with me, and he would not have died in it. Therefore, the main culprit behind Lin Rong's death is actually you, the first supreme elder of the Shuntian sect. Hearing this, Jing Ruofeng's eyes flashed with a trace of panic, and he shouted angrily, Shut up! Lin Feng no longer had any interest in arguing with them. He no longer cared about Jing Ruofeng and the worried gazes of the people around him. Turning around, he suddenly sped up and appeared beside the half-dead Lin Rong. His 5 fingers tightly clenched into a fist as he let out a low roar, Ha! At this moment, the full power of an Earth Stage 6 advanced stage was released without restraint. Even Miao Miao would be severely injured or even killed by this punch, let alone the half-dead Lin Rong. Lin Rong's eyes were filled with despair and regret. At the last moment of his life, he regretted messing with Lin Feng. In the end, he lost his life. Even his special identity, that omnipotent protective talisman, was of no use. If I could turn back time, I would never have messed with him again. This was the last thought that flashed through Lin Rong's mind. At this moment, time and space froze, turning into eternity. The scene on the star-picking platform seemed to have frozen. Jing Ruofeng and Guan Chongfeng looked at each other and finally could not help but want to stop Lin Feng. However, before they could do anything, a furious roar came from the distant horizon. Stop! Following the roar, a figure flew over at a frightening speed. It was as if he had teleported, leaving a series of afterimages in the air. An extremely strong will pressure descended in an instant. Most of the will pressure surrounded Lin Feng and restrained Lin Feng, causing him to stop moving and unable to move. At this moment, other than the 3 Grand Elders, no one else could move. This will pressure was so terrifying that it actually restrained everyone in an instant, causing their souls to tremble. However, the development of the situation was always full of unknowns. Lin Feng, who was restrained by the willpower pressure, paused for an instant. Immediately, a substance-like glint suddenly shot out from his eyes. His paused body actually broke free from the restraints of the willpower pressure in an instant. Moreover, he threw a punch at an even faster speed. Die. Lin Feng was not afraid of the will pressure of a complete Earth Sage. Rumble. Ah! After a loud explosion and a scream, Lin Rong's body was completely submerged in the explosion. Impudent! The owner of the will pressure roared in anger. No matter who you are, you will die today. As his voice fell, his figure finally arrived above the star-picking platform. Jing Ruofeng, Guan Chongfeng and the rest bowed respectfully and shouted in unison, Sect Leader. The peak masters and elders also shouted in unison, Sect Leader. The surrounding disciples also bowed and shouted respectfully, Sect Leader. The nearby crowd was like a wheat field blown by the wind, like the waves of the sea, bowing one after another. The sect leader, the mysterious Shuntian sect leader, had finally rushed back at the most crucial moment. However, even if he personally took action, he could not prevent the tragedy from happening. Chapter 536. The Shuntian sect's sect master, Kong Yuan, was famous far and wide. He was known for being an upright and strict person. However, there was no perfect person in the world. Everyone had flaws, and Kong Yuan was no exception. Lin Rong was one of his weaknesses, and it was a fatal one. Millions of years ago, Kong Yuan and his best friend had participated in a special war. In that war, even a great perfection Earth saint like him had to constantly face the threat of death. In one of the battles, he was exhausted and severely injured by the enemy. If his best friend had not appeared in time and fought with the enemy, buying him enough time to recover, and if his best friend had not fought with his life to buy him some time, he would have died at the hands of the enemy. His best friend was also severely injured by the enemy in that battle. In the end, he was ambushed by another enemy and died. Therefore, he had been feeling guilty all these years. He put all the blame for his best friend's death on himself. After returning, he took Lin Rong in. Although he treated him equally on the surface, he secretly helped him in every way possible. In addition, he became Lin Rong's protective umbrella. No matter what mistakes Lin Rong made, he would forgive him. No matter what enemies Lin Rong offended, he would find a way to settle them. For so many years, it was because of his doting care that Lin Rong became more and more arrogant. In the end, Lin Rong developed such a conceited and domineering personality. He spoke and did things according to his own preferences. Even so, he did not blame Lin Rong at all. Instead, he blamed himself for not teaching Lin Rong well, which led to Lin Rong becoming like this. One could imagine that if it were not for Kong Yuan's protection, Lin Rong would have died countless times. Since Lin Rong entered the Shuntian sect, how many people had he offended? Now that he was strong, not many people could take revenge on him. But what about when he was still weak? Back to the main topic. Lin Rong's death was a huge blow to Kong Yuan, almost driving him crazy. That tragic scene caused Kong Yuan to immediately go berserk. Without asking for the reason, he directly stretched out his palm and slammed it down on Lin Feng. Lin Rong is dead. Pay with your life for his. In an instant, the palm turned into a huge shadow, like the palm of a giant hundreds of feet tall, enveloping the entire star-picking platform. Meanwhile, an extremely dangerous and terrifying aura swept across the place. This was the aura of a 7th-tier Earth-tier Great Perfection Earth Sage. The early stage of the 7th level of the Earth Realm and the middle stage of the 7th level of the Earth Realm seemed like a small gap, but in fact there was a huge gap between the two. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that a mid-stage 7th level Earth Realm expert could sweep through 5 or 6 early-stage 7th level Earth Realm experts without suffering any injuries. If he went all out, he might be able to deal with 10 Earth Stage 7 cultivators at the same time and not be at a disadvantage. On the path of cultivation, the further one progressed, the more exaggerated the gap between each level would be. A breakthrough of a small level could bring about an increase in strength of more than 10 times. Danger! Almost everyone felt the hairs on their bodies stand on end. Their pupils abruptly constricted as they subconsciously retreated. Even though they knew that the sect leader's target wasn't them, and that the pressure and aura they were enduring was only a trace of the aura that leaked out from the star-picking platform, they were still frightened and couldn't resist at all. A trace of the aura that leaked out was already enough to make everyone's souls tremble. Then, how terrifying was the aura at the center of the star-picking platform. And how painful was Lin Feng, who was at the center of the star-picking platform, enduring? At this moment, Huang Wenbing, Jing Ting, and Nono were so angry that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Nanyang, Emoju, Xiaofeng, Chaoying, and the others were all worried about Lin Feng. They couldn't help but close their eyes in pain. They couldn't bear to watch this cruel scene. The sect leader is personally taking action. This time, Lin Feng will definitely die. Jing Ruofen coldly watched the scene on the star-picking platform. The smile on Guan Chongfeng's face also disappeared. It was replaced by a solemn expression. His expression kept changing, and no one knew what he was thinking. Lin Feng's expression became unprecedentedly solemn. Kong Yuan's aura was extremely strong. It was more than 10 times stronger than the 3 Grand Elders. Although he also had an aura that was slightly stronger than the 3 Grand Elders, the gap between him and Kong Yuan was undoubtedly huge. It would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens to break free from Kong Yuan's suppression with just his aura alone. If that's the case, then let the storm come even fiercer. He suddenly clenched his fists, and a terrifying light burst out from his eyes. In the next moment, the aura that he had never used in front of others suddenly burst out. It was like a sudden mountain torrent, carrying an unparalleled force that could destroy everything in the world. At the same time, he shouted in his heart, "Countercurrent!" His aura, combined with countercurrent, and with his peak Earth Stage 6 strength as a foundation, exploded in an instant, forming an earth-shattering force. Boom! When the huge illusory palm slammed down on Lin Feng's head, when the two were only a few feet apart, Lin Feng suddenly burst out with an earth-shattering force, forcibly breaking through Kong Yuan's restraint. His figure flashed, leaving behind an afterimage on the spot, and disappeared. Everyone around was highly focused, constantly watching Lin Feng. Hence, Lin Feng's series of actions were all in the eyes of everyone. Not a single one was missed. Obviously, this scene was extremely impactful. At this moment, from the 3 Grand Elders to the core disciples, everyone was shocked. The star-picking platform, which was already quiet, became even more silent. Even Kong Yuan, who was so angry that he almost lost his mind, could not help but look at Lin Feng, who was suspended in midair beside the star-picking platform. At this moment, this ordinary figure was like a 10,000-foot-tall giant, blooming with a dazzling light, firmly attracting everyone's attention. No one could move their eyes away. He, Lin Feng, a quasi-direct disciple who had joined the Shuntian sect for less than 20 years, had actually dodged the sure-kill attack of the sect leader. Regardless of the result today, regardless of whether he lived or died, after today Lin Feng, this ordinary name, would become famous under the heavens, chasing after Dong Zhuo, Shun Tong, and other peerless geniuses. Everyone looked at Lin Feng in shock, speechless. Chao Ying took a deep breath and regretfully murmured, "Under the great circle of the Earth Sage realm, this kid can be said to be invincible." Yan Luo, Huoshun, Yun Zhongzi, and the other disciples who had joined the Shuntian sect at the same time as Lin Feng, felt as if a bottle of 5 different emotions had been knocked over, and their mouths were filled with bitterness. While they were still feeling complacent about becoming quasi-direct disciples, Lin Feng had already grown to the point where he could dodge the sect leader's attack. In the air, Lin Feng didn't have the energy to care about the reactions of the crowd. He was looking at the middle-aged man, not far away, with a heavy heart. The strength of a mid-stage Earth stage, 7th stage expert is indeed terrifying. This was the first time he had truly exchanged blows with an expert of the Earth stage, 7th stage. Even though it was a simple exchange of blows, he felt that he couldn't resist at all. He had to use all his strength to barely dodge the attack. The opponent's strength was unfathomable, and if he hadn't dodged quickly enough, he would have been smashed into a pile of meat paste in an instant. Kong Yuan was also looking at Lin Feng. Although he didn't use any law techniques in that attack, the power contained in that palm was truly that of a mid-stage Earth stage, 7th stage expert. He didn't show any mercy. Even a Great Circle Earth stage, 7th stage expert would find it hard to dodge such a palm. However, Lin Feng had done it. He had done something that even a Great Circle Earth stage, 7th stage expert would find difficult to do. This young man has such strength at such a young age. His potential is limitless. Kong Yuan took a deep breath as a glint flashed in his eyes. His gaze stopped on Lin Feng, but he didn't immediately make a move. For a moment, the two of them looked at each other. Neither of them spoke, nor did they make a move. The surrounding atmosphere became strange. The strange silence spread to every corner of the star-picking platform. Time passed slowly as if magic had been cast. Every minute and every second became incomparably long and unbearable. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. Everyone's attention was immediately attracted. They also wanted to know who was so insensible as to disturb them at such a critical moment. Soon, the person approached the star-picking platform. It was a core disciple who was in charge of guarding the teleportation formation. He bowed respectfully to Kong Yuan and said, "Sect leader, young Master Dong Zhuo of the North Nether Sect requests an audience." North Nether Sect? Dong Zhuo? Kong Yuan's face turned serious. The successor of the North Nether Sect, one of the three superforces, was a peerless genius whose name shook the entire northwest region. Even he, the sect leader of the Shuntian sect, had to take his existence seriously. However, a trace of doubt welled up in his heart. The people of the Shuntian sect have no dealings with Dong Zhuo. Why would he suddenly visit the Shuntian sect? Before he could speak, another voice came from afar. Reporting. It was another core disciple who was guarding the teleportation formation. He bowed hurriedly and quickly said, "Sect leader, young Master Shin Tong of the Sword Sect requests an audience." Hearing this, Kong Yuan raised his eyebrows. Another one? First, it was Dong Zhuo, then it was Shin Tong. They arrived almost at the same time. Was it a coincidence or intentional? Why did the two of them come? Could it be a conspiracy? Kong Yuan was not the only one who couldn't figure it out. Even the people present couldn't figure it out, including Lin Feng. Lin Feng was also very surprised by Dong Zhuo and Shin Tong's arrival. However, he would never have guessed that the two of them were here for him. Did they say anything when they came? Kong Yuan looked at the two core disciples who came to report the news and asked with a frown. The two core disciples looked at each other and hesitated for a moment. One of them said in a low voice, "They said that they are here to visit sect leader and also senior brother Lin Feng." As soon as these words came out, everyone's eyes widened as they looked at Lin Feng in disbelief. Lin Feng also pointed at himself in astonishment. "Visit me? No way." Chapter 537. Facing everyone's doubtful gazes, Lin Feng shrugged innocently, "Don't look at me, I don't know why they came to visit me." However, in his heart, he could guess the reason, but he wasn't sure if it was as he had guessed. Practically all the disciples that participated in the last Sun Annihilation youth competition knew that Lin Feng was acquainted with Dong Zhuo and Shin Tong. At that time, they'd merely walked out of the desolate demon forest together, and it had already caused the jaws of countless people to drop to the ground. To be able to be related to these two renowned peerless geniuses, Dong Zhuo and Shen Tong, was an extremely great honor to anyone. Everyone originally thought that Lin Feng's relationship with Dong Zhuo and Shen Tong was limited to just acquaintances. But now, it seemed that their relationship was far from that simple. Furthermore, from their actions, it was obvious that Lin Feng occupied an extremely important position in their hearts. Otherwise, why would they come all the way to the Shuntian sect to visit Lin Feng? Although they said that they were here to visit Kong Yuan and Lin Feng, in reality, everyone was well aware of who they were here to visit. Kong Yuan looked at Lin Feng in surprise. "You are Lin Feng?" Only now did he know of Lin Feng's identity. The reason he returned to the Shuntian sect was because of Lin Feng, the genius that Chao Ying held in high regard. But he didn't expect that after rushing back excitedly, before he could even preside over the conferring ceremony, he would attack Huang Rong the moment they met. Fate was really a mysterious thing. However, even if he knew of Lin Feng's identity, he still couldn't eliminate his killing intent towards Lin Feng. No matter how outstanding a genius was, he must pay with his life for killing Lin Rong. There was no room for discussion on this point. Kong Yuan's face darkened. He glanced at Lin Feng and said indifferently, "You're quite influential, aren't you?" Lin Feng calmly replied, "No matter how big my face is, it can't compare to Lord Sect Master." "Humph." Kong Yuan snorted and immediately said to the two core disciples, "You two go down and bring them over." The two core disciples immediately bowed and said, "Disciple accepts the order." After the two of them left, Kong Yuan took a deep look at Lin Feng and said, "I want to see exactly how much face you have. Will they not hesitate to become enemies with me in order to save you?" Kong Yuan really valued Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo. Their strength, status, and talent couldn't be underestimated. However, Kong Yuan wasn't an ordinary person. Even if his talent wasn't as good as Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo's, it wasn't too far off. Moreover, he was a sect master. Strictly speaking, his status was higher than Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo's. After all, although they came from a superforce and were the heirs of a superforce, heirs were still heirs. They were still a little weaker than Kong Yuan, who was a sect master of the middle stage Earth realm. If the Pavilion Masters and Sect Masters of the Dawn Heaven Pavilion, Dark North Sect, and Sword Sect were here, then he would definitely be fearful. However, if it was a successor, then he wouldn't be so fearful. Many core disciples, peak masters, elders, true disciples, and grand elders accompanied Kong Yuan to the star-picking platform to wait for the two special visitors. During this time, Kong Yuan didn't make a move against Lin Feng. With his strength, if he wanted to kill Lin Feng, he could do so at any time. He didn't think that Lin Feng could escape from his hands, so he wasn't in a hurry. It wouldn't be too late to make a move after everything was settled. In his eyes, Lin Feng was a piece of meat on the chopping board. He could slaughter him however he wanted. Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo were very fast and didn't make them wait for long. After a while, the two of them arrived at the star-picking platform. As soon as they arrived, the two of them were shocked by the lively crowd around the star-picking platform. If they hadn't sent someone to send their name cards in advance, they would have thought that the Shuntian sect had specially arranged this to welcome them. Their gazes swept across the crowd, pausing on Lin Feng for a while before finally landing on Kong Yuan. Dark North Sect, Dong Zhuo, greet Senior Kong Yuan. Dong Zhuo bowed in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Shen Tong still had the same cold and indifferent look on her face, as she said indifferently, Sword Sect, Shen Tong greets Senior Kong Yuan. Kong Yuan didn't dare to be arrogant and hurriedly returned their greetings. Soon after, he smiled faintly and said, Shuntian sect hasn't welcomed guests for a long time. The arrival of these two little friends brings light to our humble dwelling. After a pause, Kong Yuan asked, How is your teacher? Thank you for your concern, Senior. Our teacher is doing well. Dong Zhuo and Shen Tong replied. After exchanging greetings for a while, Dong Zhuo asked, Senior, may I ask if today is a grand occasion for the Shuntian sect? Did we disturb you by taking the liberty of visiting? Kong Yuan said indifferently, It's not a grand occasion. As for what happened, I've only just returned, so I don't know yet. After saying that, he looked at Jing Ruofeng and asked, Great Elder, tell me, what happened before I returned? Why are all the core disciples gathered here? Why did Lin Feng attack Lin Rong? Jing Ruofeng was instantly at a loss for what to do when he was asked this question, and he hesitated to speak. Kong Yuan frowned and shifted his gaze to Chaoying, saying, Third Elder, you speak. Chaoying was silent for a moment and said hesitantly, Just now, Lin Feng and Lin Rong were engaged in a life-and-death battle. What? Kong Yuan's eyes flashed and his voice turned cold. They are both true disciples. According to the sect rules, true disciples are forbidden from engaging in life-and-death battles. If they want to mess around, don't tell me you grand elders, true disciples, and peak masters are going to mess around with them? His face darkened and he flew into a rage. He never imagined that Lin Feng and Lin Rong were engaged in a life-and-death battle just now. In a life-and-death battle, life and death were decided by the heavens. This was a universal rule since ancient times. Even if he was a mid-stage, earth-stage, seventh-stage expert, he couldn't interfere. Why didn't you say so earlier? He questioned. Jing Ruofeng said weakly, Sect Master, you acted too quickly. We didn't have time to tell you. Moreover, he hoped that Lin Feng would die in Kong Yuan's hands. Naturally, he wasn't in a hurry to tell Kong Yuan the truth. Of course, there was one thing he didn't say. That was, so what if you know? Even if you know that Lin Rong was killed by Lin Feng in a life-and-death battle, would you let him go? It was obvious that Kong Yuan wouldn't let Lin Feng go. Shun Tong and Dong Zhuo looked at Jing Ruofeng, Chaoying, and the others in shock. Their expressions were strange. Where did Lin Rong get the courage to engage in a life-and-death battle with Senior Lin Feng? Shun Tong and Dong Zhuo had the urge to laugh. Others might not have seen Lin Feng's strength, but they had personally experienced it. Even a late-stage, earth-stage, seventh-stage Shi Yao was killed by Senior Lin Feng, let alone a mere true disciple of the Shuntian sect. Dong Zhuo couldn't help but shake his head and think to himself, if that guy knew Senior Lin Feng's true strength, I wonder if he would still have the courage. Shun Tong, the ice beauty, was blushing at this moment. She almost couldn't hold back her laughter. What's wrong? Do you have a problem? Noticing their strange behavior, Kong Yuan frowned and asked. Shun Tong and Dong Zhuo quickly shook their heads, no. Kong Yuan looked at them suspiciously, then turned to look at Lin Feng and said, I was wrong in this matter. I attacked you without knowing the details of the matter. This is my fault. He admitted his mistake calmly and didn't shirk any responsibility. He was open and aboveboard, without hiding anything. When Jing Ruofeng heard this, he became anxious. But before he could speak, Kong Yuan changed the topic and said, But the emphasis was on the word, but I still want to kill you. Kong Yuan took a deep breath and said indifferently, logically speaking, you didn't do anything wrong in this matter. Instead, you suffered a lot. I have no reason to attack you. Instead, I should think of a way to compensate you. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for killing someone you shouldn't have. Lin Rong is the son of my best friend. If he dies, how will I explain it to my friend in the afterlife? So, you must die. Even if I have to bear infamy, even if Shuntian sect falls apart and its thousands of years of foundation is destroyed, it can't change my decision. As soon as these words came out, the surrounding air suddenly turned cold. Everyone held their breaths, and their hearts inexplicably became heavy. Wait. Only now did Dong Zhuo and Shun Tong understand what had happened. The two of them immediately became anxious. Kong Yuan's gaze that contained a trace of killing intent fell on Dong Zhuo and Shun Tong. What else do you want? The two of them were shocked by Kong Yuan's gaze. They felt a bone-chilling coldness, as if they were in an ice house. Although he was extremely afraid of Kong Yuan's strength, Dong Zhuo had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, "Senior Kong Yuan, for the sake of my North Nether sect, can you spare Lin Feng?" Shen Tong said in a heavy voice, "I hope Senior Kong Yuan can give us a way out and spare Lin Feng." A trace of surprise flashed across Kong Yuan's face, and he said in surprise, "For the sake of North Nether sect? Can you represent North Nether sect? Will your teacher agree with your decision?" There was a trace of contempt in his tone. Dong Zhuo's expression did not change, and he said solemnly, "To tell you the truth, Senior, this visit was specially ordered by my teacher." Shen Tong was unwilling to fall behind, and he continued, "Not only did my teacher order me to visit, but he also specially prepared a gift for Lin Feng." "That's right, our North Nether sect has also specially prepared a gift for Lin Feng," Dong Zhuo immediately said. Hearing this, Kong Yuan raised his eyebrows. The two sect leaders of North Nether sect and Sword sect had actually specially prepared a gift for Lin Feng. This was far beyond their expectations. Could it be that in the eyes of the two sect leaders, Lin Feng's status had really reached such a level? What gift? Can you tell me and satisfy my curiosity? Kong Yuan pretended to be interested and asked. Dong Zhuo and Shen Tong looked at each other and hesitated for a moment. Then, they clenched their teeth and nodded. Dong Zhuo took a deep breath and took out a treasure from his interspatial ring in an extremely solemn and even somewhat solemn manner. It was a verdant leaf that seemed to contain the essence of heaven and earth. It was very small, but it emitted a mysterious fluctuation. Just by smelling its fragrance, the people around felt their bottlenecks loosen slightly, and they frantically absorbed the wisps of aura. Although the people around did not recognize what it was, they looked at the small leaf with burning eyes, and their faces were filled with disbelief. Kong Yuan, who was originally calm, also cried out involuntarily, "Clear spirit leaf!" It was actually a clear spirit leaf that was hundreds and thousands of times more precious than a non-attributed earth yuan stone. As if the heavens were deliberately teasing Lin Feng, while his gaze was still fixed on the clear spirit leaf, Shen Tong also took out the gift she had prepared for Lin Feng this time. It was also a small verdant leaf, and beside it was a dark green water droplet. That dark green water droplet was the legendary Triple Origin Water. This gift was beyond everyone's imagination, and they could not imagine how terrifying its value was. Chapter 538. The Clear Spirit Leaf was one of the top treasures even among the three superpowers. It was a priceless treasure. Although the effects of the Triple Yuan Water were different from that of the Clear Spirit Leaf, its value was no less than that of the Clear Spirit Leaf. To those earth cultivators who focused on refining their bodies, the value of the Triple Yuan Water was even higher than that of the Clear Spirit Leaf. Whether it was the Clear Spirit Leaf or the Triple Origin Water, both were treasures that could make countless powerhouses go crazy. Even the Shuntian sect's treasure vault could not find a treasure that was on par with them. Dong Zhuo was very satisfied with the reaction of the crowd. However, he did not become complacent because of this. Instead, he asked Lin Feng in a questioning tone, "Senior Lin Feng." He paused for a moment before continuing, "Brother Lin, I wonder if you are satisfied with the gift from our Dark North sect?" The Dark North sect had paid a huge price for the Clear Spirit Leaf. If Lin Feng was still not satisfied, Dong Zhuo would not know what to do. Although Shen Tong did not ask, she also looked at Lin Feng with anticipation and nervousness, waiting for Lin Feng's answer. Lin Feng did not know what kind of treasures the Clear Spirit Leaf and the Triple Origin Water were, but judging from Kong Yuan's reaction, they were obviously not ordinary items. Otherwise, Kong Yuan would not have been so shocked. After all, the knowledge and tolerance of a mid-stage Earth stage 7th stage powerhouse was not something an ordinary person could compare with. There was no need to doubt their value to be able to shock Kong Yuan to such an extent. He was startled and hesitated. To be honest, he was very tempted and almost could not help but accept the gift. However, as the saying goes, one should be soft-hearted after receiving a gift. He had accepted the other party's gift for no reason at all. If the other party wanted him to do something in the future, how could he refuse? It would be fine if he was really an Earth stage 8th stage powerhouse like Dong Zhuo and Shen Tong thought. However, the problem was that he was only a late-stage Earth stage 6th stage powerhouse. Even if he took into account his terrifying trump card, Berserk, he could at most threaten the life of a late-stage Earth stage 7th stage powerhouse. What should he do if the other party asked him to do a task that only an Earth stage 8th stage powerhouse could accomplish? After all, he was not the kind of person who would get rid of the donkey after it had outlived its usefulness. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. In the end, Lin Feng shook his head slowly. "Please thank your sect master for me. I've troubled you. However, I can't accept this gift." Everyone looked at Lin Feng in shock. He actually refused. Such a precious gift was something that even Great Perfection Earth Saints of the 7th and 8th stage of the Great Perfection Earth Saint realm wouldn't be able to reject. However, Lin Feng had rejected it so straightforwardly, leaving no room for negotiation. Seeing everyone like this, Lin Feng remained calm on the surface, but he laughed bitterly in his heart. "Do you think I don't want to accept it? But this gift is hot to the touch." If it was another despicable and shameless person, they might have agreed without hesitation. However, Lin Feng was different. He could not do such a thing. Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo's hearts sank upon hearing Lin Feng's refusal. In their opinion, this gift was ultimately rejected by Lin Feng. However, this was already the most suitable and most valuable gift they could give. They naturally hoped that Lin Feng would accept the gift readily. In this way, they could truly establish a relationship with Lin Feng. Otherwise, this indifferent relationship might fade away at any time, and they might gradually be forgotten by Lin Feng in some corner, never to be remembered again. If Lin Feng did not accept the gift, they could not be at ease. Brother Lin, this gift was carefully selected by our sect master. Even in our sect, we can't find a more valuable gift than this. I hope Brother Lin won't reject this gift and accept it." Dong Zhuo's voice carried a trace of anxiety, but he did not dare to show it too much. Shen Tong also said anxiously, "I hope Brother Lin will accept this gift." There was even a trace of pleading in her voice. Those who did not know would not understand why Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo were so impatient to give this gift. Logically speaking, they should be happy that Lin Feng did not accept it. After all, this kind of treasure was priceless and extremely rare. However, they were so anxious that Lin Feng did not accept it. It was as if they were primary school students admitting their mistake. No one could understand what they were thinking. Could it be that Lin Feng has some other unusual identity? For example, the son of a sacred king, or the son of the leader of an overlord-level faction? Everyone's imagination ran wild, and all kinds of guesses appeared in their minds. Lin Feng's image in their hearts became more and more mysterious. Lin Feng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not expect that his refusal would cause such a strong reaction from the two. He was about to refuse again when Nono's voice sounded in his ears. "Boss, accept it." Lin Feng was about to say something, but he stopped. He frowned and asked, "Nuonuo, do you know what it means for me to accept their gifts?" Nono said, "Of course I know. Doesn't it mean that you will not be able to refuse their help in the future?" Lin Feng asked, "Then why do you still want me to accept it?" "Of course," Nono said with absolute certainty. "Boss, you should listen to me this time. I can't tell you the specific reason in a short time. I will explain it to you after they leave. You will not regret your decision after you hear it. In short, you only need to know that the clear spirit leaf and triple yuan water are very precious treasures that can help you improve your strength quickly. The effect is dozens of times better than the non-attributed earth yuan stone. Dozens of times. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. He seemed to understand Nono's meaning a little. After pondering for a moment, he finally said, "All right, I accept your gift." From his tone, he seemed to be a little reluctant. This caused the many disciples, peak masters, and elders who were staring anxiously at the clear spirit leaf and triple yuan water to have the urge to vomit blood. Dong Zhuo and Xin Tong immediately became happy and said excitedly, thank you, Brother Lin." When everyone heard this, they almost fainted. This was the first time they had seen someone who was reluctant to accept a gift, while the one who was giving it was overjoyed. Moreover, the gift was so precious that it made people's hair stand on end. Even if they racked their brains, they would never be able to figure out what was going on. Wait. Kong Yuan interrupted at this time. He said indifferently, "You should take these gifts back. Lin Feng won't have the chance to accept them." These words shocked everyone. Only now did they remember that their sect master had already decided to kill Lin Feng. Who knew that Dong Zhuo and Xin Tong were not as anxious as before. Dong Zhuo said slowly, "Senior Kong Yuan, do you believe that if you kill Lin Feng, everyone in the Shuntian sect, including yourself, will be buried with him?" There was no hint of threat in his tone. It was as if he was talking about a matter of course, and he spoke with certainty. A rare smile appeared on Xin Tong's cold face as she said, "If Senior Kong Yuan doesn't believe me, you can give it a try." "Humph." Kong Yuan snorted coldly, his face cold. "Are you threatening me?" He thought that Dong Zhuo and Xin Tong meant that the North Nether sect and Sword sect would stand up for Lin Feng and take revenge on the Shuntian sect. Although Dong Zhuo and Xin Tong's intentions were misunderstood by Kong Yuan, they did not explain. If they could stand up for Lin Feng, they would be more than happy to do so. This was a shortcut to strengthen their relationship with Lin Feng. However, they obviously did not think that they would get this opportunity because with Lin Feng's strength, there was no need for them to stand up for him. Dong Zhuo shrugged noncommittally and said with a faint smile, "You can think of it that way." In an instant, Kong Yuan's eyes became extremely cold. "Do you really think I don't dare to do it? It's best if you don't do it, but if you must be mentally prepared to bury the entire Shuntian sect with you." Dong Zhuo put away his smile and said seriously, "You must be aware of this, otherwise, you may not be able to accept the cruel reality." Kong Yuan stared at Dong Zhuo and Xin Tong. Dong Zhuo and Xin Tong looked back at him without flinching. The surroundings suddenly quieted down, and the atmosphere became unprecedentedly heavy. Suddenly, Kong Yuan laughed loudly, "Ha ha ha ha!" As soon as he finished laughing, he looked at Lin Feng and said with a hint of ridicule, "Lin Feng, oh Lin Feng, your face is really big. Even the North Nether sect and Sword sect are willing to help you deal with the Shuntian sect. But even so, you still have to die." He was a stubborn person. Even if he hit a wall and broke his head, he would not turn back. Xin Tong and Dong Zhuo's arrival not only did not dispel his killing intent towards Lin Feng, but instead made him even more determined to kill Lin Feng. "I'll kill you now. I want to see if anyone can stop me." Kong Yuan sneered and prepared to attack. Report. However, at this critical moment, the core disciple who was guarding the transmission array returned. Kong Yuan frowned and asked, "What is it now?" The core disciple trembled when Kong Yuan's cold gaze swept over him, reporting to Sect Master Lord Mu requests an audience. "Lord Mu? Which Lord Mu? Why is he looking for me?" Kong Yuan asked. The core disciple reluctantly finished his sentence, his heart filled with fear and bitterness. He said he's here to visit Senior Brother Lin Feng. "Mu Yun. It's actually him." Kong Yuan was shocked. Mu Yun's name was even more resounding than his own. In the entire Northwest region, Mu Yun was definitely a well-known figure and was highly respected. He was known as the most respected artifact refining grandmaster in the Northwest region. But when did Mu Yun have any relationship with Lin Feng? He looked deeply at Lin Feng and said with a complicated tone, "I didn't expect that my Shuntian sect would produce such an amazing disciple." Not only did the two successors of the Northwest region come to visit with treasures, even the artifact refining pavilion's Northwest region deacon, the famous senior Mu Yun Mu, personally came to visit. If he said that Lin Feng had a big face before, it was to ridicule Lin Feng, but now, he was truly shocked. In such a short time, there were people coming to visit Lin Feng one after another, and each of them had a special identity. It was impossible for him not to be shocked. The endless stream of heavyweight visitors not only shocked Kong Yuan, but also made the many disciples, peak masters, and elders feel at a loss for what to do. At this moment, Lin Feng became even more mysterious. Chapter 539. Since you know it's Mu Yun, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and invite him over! Kong Yuan shouted. The core disciple shuddered in fear and said as he retreated, "I'll go invite him over right now." After the core disciple left, Kong Yuan looked at Lin Feng with a complicated expression and sighed inwardly. "Lin Feng, oh Lin Feng, who are you? Why are there so many people with special identities visiting you?" If Dong Zhuo and Shen Tong were only important to him, then he was extremely fearful of Mu Yun and wanted to befriend him. As a veteran high-tier Earth-tier blacksmith and a 7-dan Earth-tier intermediate stage Earth Sage consummation cultivator on par with him, Zhang Xian was bound to be a popular figure no matter where he went. Regardless of which sect he joined, he would surely receive the highest treatment. Moreover, putting aside Mu Yun's identity as a high-tier Earth-grade craftsman and a mid-tier Earth-grade perfect Earth Saint, his other identity was also fearsome. He was the deacon of the Weapon Refining Pavilion's Northwest Region branch. Moreover, he was the Grand Deacon. Simply put, he could intervene in everything that happened in the Weapon Refining Pavilion's Northwest Region and lead the overall situation. One must know that the Weapon Refining Pavilion was an overlord force that surpassed the 3 superpowers in the Northwest region. Its sphere of influence had already extended to the other 2 continents in the Suiyang realm. There were countless experts in the Weapon Refining Pavilion, and there were probably no less than 100 perfect Earth Saint grade perfect Earth Saint realm experts. It was definitely a colossus that stood at the top of the Suiyang realm. It had existed since the birth of the Suiyang realm. For countless years, no one had ever shaken its position, so one could imagine how terrifying it was. Although Mu Yun was only a deacon in the Weapon Refining Pavilion's Northwest region, his status was even higher than some of the sect leaders of the superpowers. Ordinary deacons were on equal footing with the sect leaders of the Dawn Sky Pavilion, North Nether Sect, and Sword Sect. The Grand Deacon was naturally above these people. Compared to Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo, Mu Yun was the real big shot. He was the kind of terrifying existence that could shake the entire Northwest region with a stomp of his foot. After a while, Mu Yun and the core disciple arrived at the star-plucking platform of the Weapon Refining Pavilion. Junior Kong Yuan greets Lord Mu. Even with Kong Yuan's status and identity, he had no choice but to respectfully bow in front of Mu Yun and address him as Lord Mu. Mu Yun smiled faintly and said, "No need to be overly courteous. Kong Yuan, I remember that the last time I saw you, your strength was only at the late stage of Earth Stage 6 stage. It's been a long time since we last met. I didn't expect you to become a sect master and reach the middle stage of Earth Stage 7 stage. At your age, there's a big chance that you can continue to make breakthroughs in the future. Maybe our Northwest region will have another expert of Earth Stage 7th stage." The last time they met seemed to have been 100 million years ago. The long passage of time had already caused their memories to become blurry. Lord Mu, you flatter me, Kong Yuan said respectfully. All right, I'm here to look for Lin Feng, so I won't chat with you any longer. If there's a chance in the future, we'll slowly catch up. Mu Yun smiled and waved his hand. Then, his gaze started to search the crowd. Kong Yuan wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, he kept his mouth shut and did not say anything. Soon, Mu Yun's gaze landed on Lin Feng. A bright smile immediately appeared on his face. Little friend Lin Feng, we meet again. As soon as he opened his mouth, everyone's gaze converged on Lin Feng again. Today, Lin Feng was destined to be in the limelight, even though he had already been in the limelight. Senior Mu, how have you been? Lin Feng also greeted him with a smile. Although he and Mu Yun were not very close and had not known each other for long in this limited time, he had a good impression of Mu Yun's character. The two of them could be considered friends despite the difference in age. Moreover, with Lin Feng's craftsmanship ability and monstrous talent, he was qualified to be friends with Mu Yun as an equal. Therefore, when he communicated with Mu Yun, he did not feel any psychological burden. As for Mu Yun's identity, it was not in Lin Feng's consideration. There was no relationship of interest between them. They were just ordinary friends. There was no need to think too much. As the saying goes, one can be strong without desires. Lin Feng did not ask for anything from Mu Yun, so he spoke with confidence. Moreover, with Lin Feng's craftsmanship ability and talent, he could join any force at any time, including the crafting pavilion. Presumably, no one would be able to refuse a genius like Lin Feng. Their familiar greetings in the eyes of outsiders were even more thought-provoking. Senior brother Lin Feng, who exactly is he? They now realized that they could not see through Lin Feng at all. Mu Yun smiled. I came to find you this time, mainly to see what kind of sect the Shuntian sect is and what kind of magic it has. Senior, what do you mean? Lin Feng did not understand Mu Yun's meaning for a while. Lin Yun shook his head and said regretfully, Of course I want to see what kind of sect it is that you would not hesitate to accept my invitation and refuse to become a deacon of our crafting pavilion. As he spoke, he glanced at Kong Yuan. Forgive my poor eyesight, but in my opinion, there is nothing special about the Shuntian sect. It does not have the charm that I imagined. As soon as these words came out, it caused a series of gasps from the crowd. Hiss, everyone looked at Lin Feng again, and their gazes changed. In their eyes there was a trace of doubt, a trace of admiration, and a trace of regret. As for the core disciples of the crafting peak, they felt an inexplicable warmth in their hearts. Senior brother Lin Feng would rather refuse to become a deacon of the crafting pavilion and stay in the Shuntian sect. They suddenly felt their eyes sting. It turned out that Lin Feng had rejected Lord Mu. He had rejected a great opportunity. However, he had never mentioned it in front of the Shuntian sect disciples. If Lord Mu had not mentioned it, they would have never known about it. Of course, while they admired and doubted him, they were also extremely shocked. Even a giant like the crafting pavilion would invite senior brother Lin Feng to become a deacon. How much ability does senior brother Lin Feng have hidden? The crowd could not help but sigh deeply. They were not naive enough to think that the crafting pavilion would be stupid enough to casually invite someone to become a deacon. As for Kong Yuan, his expression was extremely complicated. Although he was determined to kill Lin Feng at this moment, he was slightly shaken. In order to stay in the Shuntian sect, Lin Feng rejected a chance to reach the heavens in a single step. In the end, not only did he not receive special treatment from the Shuntian sect, he was almost killed by the sect leader himself. What kind of irony was this? At this moment, he could not help but feel ashamed. Was he right to do this? For the sake of a friend, was it really appropriate to treat Lin Feng like this? Noticing the change in expression of the crowd, Lin Feng could not help but bitterly smile. Senior, Didn't we agree not to mention this matter? Chapter 540. Mu Yun also noticed the reaction of the crowd and couldn't help but look at Lin Feng in confusion. This is not something shameful, why don't you tell them? Hearing this, Lin Feng shook his head and said, This is my own matter, there is no need to make it known to the world. Don't tell me that you don't even need to tell them that you have passed our refining pavilion's high-rank Earth-grade refiner examination? Mu Yun said with a smile. He did it on purpose, he must have done it on purpose. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked as expected. Although the disciples of the Shuntian sect knew that Lin Feng had refined a third transformation sacred armor a long time ago, but since then, Lin Feng had never refined a weapon again, so in the eyes of the crowd, this should just be a coincidence. This kind of situation had happened before, and even Xie Xiaofeng subconsciously thought that although Lin Feng's refining ability was powerful, it was not to the extent of reaching the level of a high-rank Earth-grade refiner, so Lin Feng's refining ability was not as dazzling as his strength. However, Mu Yun's words once again broke their previous understanding of Lin Feng. Passed the Earth-grade high-rank refiner examination. One must know that even those Earth-grade high-rank refiners who had been famous for a long time had not passed the refining pavilion's Earth-grade high-rank refiner examination, so one could imagine how difficult it was. Lin Feng had passed the Earth-grade high-rank refiner examination, which naturally proved that he was a true Earth-grade high-rank refiner. It was not a coincidence that he had refined the third transformation sacred armor. Moreover, his refining ability was above many of the Earth-grade high-tier armament masters who had been famous for a long time. At this moment, the surrounding disciples were in an uproar. The moment Lin Feng's identity as an Earth-grade high-rank refiner was exposed, it caused them to be greatly shocked. Earth-grade high-rank refiner, senior brother Lin Feng, is actually an Earth-grade high-rank refiner. Many core disciples instantly prostrated themselves in admiration of Lin Feng, and even a sense of worship involuntarily arose in their hearts. That sense of worship uncontrollably emerged from the bottom of their hearts and flowed endlessly. They did not dare to imagine that there was such a young Earth-grade high-rank refiner in this world. After all, these young people did not live in the era when the Soldier Emperor was young, otherwise they would not be so shocked. However, even people from that era would be surprised by Lin Feng's young age, wouldn't they? Nanyang whispered, Earth-grade high-rank Earth-grade high-rank Earth-grade high-rank Earth-grade high-rank, to what extent is Lin Feng's talent? For a moment, he felt that Lin Feng was extremely far away from him. Although there was only a distance of a few dozen zhang between them, he still felt that Lin Feng was extremely far away, as if there was a heavenly moat between them. His voice carried a trace of absent-mindedness, a shocked absent-mindedness. The people nearby all sucked in a breath of cold air. They were unable to use words to express the shock they felt in their hearts. Such a young Earth-grade high-tier weapon refiner. I've only heard from the old people that Sir Soldier Emperor was promoted to Earth-grade high-tier weapon refiner in his youth. Other than that, there is no one else. Lin Feng is the second after the Soldier Emperor. A bitter smile hung on Mo Zhu's face. But don't forget, Lin Feng also has the strength of an Earth stage late stage 6. He even dodged the sect leader's fatal attack. This kind of strength, at this age, is also amazing. No one can compare to him. The chief disciple of the Fair Maiden Peak, Luoli, sighed and said, The most frightening thing is that no matter if it's a young Earth-grade high-rank tool refiner or an Earth-grade late-stage 6-stage tool refiner, as long as anyone possesses either of these, they can be called a peerless genius. They are even stronger than senior sister Shen Tong and senior brother Dong Zhuo. As for Lin Feng, she didn't continue, but someone else finished for her. He took both categories. Liao Chen, the chief disciple of Potion Peak, continued with a complicated expression. In the past, they had all thought that they were the main characters of this world, that they were the favored children of heaven and earth, that they were the unique geniuses. Even if they were overtaken by the latecomers one after another, they never doubted this point. But now their confidence was shaken. If they were considered geniuses, then what was Linfeng? Compared to Linfeng, what qualifications did they have to be called geniuses? In terms of strength, they were older than Linfeng and had joined the Shuntian sect earlier than Linfeng. But now they were far from being a match for Linfeng. In terms of rank, Linfeng was an Earth-grade high-rank tool refiner. Some of them were mortal-grade high-rank tool refiners, pill refiners, array masters, and so on. The most powerful of them were Earth-grade low-rank tool refiners, pill refiners, array masters, and so on. The gap between them and Linfeng was like an endless chasm. Everyone around the star-picking platform fell into silence. Silence became the main theme at this moment. Senior Mu Yu. Linfeng became more and more helpless. His background was almost completely exposed by Mu Yun. Mu Yun laughed heartily and said, "This is a good thing. Of course, we should let everyone know and celebrate together. What's the point of hiding it?" He didn't seem to care at all. Instead, he winked at Linfeng. For Mu Yun, who was known for his strictness, such an interesting expression was quite rare. Seeing this scene, Linfeng was immediately defeated. He sighed and didn't know what to say. "Oh right, these two are?" Only now did Mu Yun notice Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo. When he sensed their strength, he said with surprise, "What dense energy of laws, and it faintly contains a trace of the pressure of will. Looks like you've already touched the edge of the 7th level of the Earth realm. With your strength, there's probably rarely anyone below the 7th level of the Earth realm that can be a match for you, right?" How discerning was his gaze. He saw through Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo's backgrounds with a single glance. Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo exchanged glances, and then they bowed respectfully to Mu Yun in unison. "I'm the Sword Sect's head elite disciple, Shen Tong, North Nether Sect's head elite disciple, Dong Zhuo." Shen Tong, Dong Zhuo? Mu Yun paused for a moment before he came to an understanding. "I was wondering who it was. So it's the disciples of Bai Yun and Chong Kong. No wonder you possess such strength at such a young age. Looks like the two of you can be considered to have surpassed your masters. Your future accomplishments will probably surpass Bai Yun and Chong Kong." Even though he hadn't carefully investigated Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo's backgrounds, Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo were top figures in the younger generation of the Northwest Territory after all. They were two of the three most outstanding geniuses in the Northwest Territory, so he'd naturally heard of them. On the other hand, Bai Yun and Chong Kong were naturally Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo's teachers, and they were the sect masters of the Sword Sect and Dark North Sect. "Senior, you're too kind." Both of them spoke respectfully and extremely modestly. Mu Yun shook his head and said, "I'm not speaking nonsense. With your natural talent, both of you really do have a chance to surpass your teachers in the future. Perhaps one day, I'll have to rely on both of you to survive in the Northwest Territory." At this moment, Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo went silent because they didn't know how to continue the conversation. "Ha!" Mu Yun smiled and said, "However, even though both of your natural talent is formidable, it's still quite inferior when compared to young brother Linfeng." He blinked at Linfeng and said, "Don't think that I'm talking about ability in equipment refinement. I'm talking about actual strength." Everyone was shocked by his words, but Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo smiled calmly to everyone's surprise. They were much inferior to Linfeng? It was more than much inferior. The two of them smiled bitterly and sighed inwardly. Senior Mu Yun's words are simply flattering us. With our current strength, there's no way we can compare to Senior Linfeng. He's an 8th stage Earth realm expert, and even our teachers are no match for him. However, we haven't even reached the 7th stage of the Earth realm, and we're still at the peak of the 6th stage of the Earth realm. Our strength is more than just much inferior. They thought that Mu Yun knew that Lin Feng was at the 8th stage of the Earth realm, so they completely agreed with Mu Yun's words. Lin Feng. Kong Yuan, who hadn't spoken for a long time, suddenly called out. The trace of a smile that had just appeared on Lin Feng's face disappeared in an instant. He said in a heavy voice, "Is there anything else, Sect Master?" Kong Yuan opened his mouth and then smiled bitterly. He took a deep breath and said hesitantly, "I can let bygones be bygones. However, I hope that you can agree to a condition of mine." Yes, he compromised. Under the increasingly dazzling brilliance of Lin Feng and his incomparably shocking talent, under the benevolent attitude of the North Nether Sect, Sword Sect, and even Mu Yun, the deacon of the Weapon Refining Pavilion, towards Lin Feng, he compromised. Of course, if it was just this, he might not have compromised. However, he had inadvertently thought of a better solution. This was a solution that would allow him to face his close friends in the future without feeling ashamed. It was a solution that satisfied both sides. Mu Yun didn't know what had just happened, so he was puzzled by the conversation between the two. However, he didn't interrupt. No matter how noble his status was, he still had to treat others with the most basic respect. What condition? Lin Feng asked. He didn't have a good impression of many people in the Shuntian sect, but he still cared about the many core disciples of the Weapon Refining Peak. Apart from these people, the third Supreme Elder Chao Ing was also a person he greatly respected. Therefore, if it wasn't necessary, he wouldn't take the initiative to leave the Shuntian sect. Since this matter could be resolved peacefully, he naturally hoped that it could be resolved peacefully. My condition is that within 10,000 years, you must challenge the Sword God's Palace, and you must pass the 6th level. Kong Yuan took a deep breath. This is the lifelong wish of my best friend, Lin Xian. Although I have always been thinking of ways to fulfill his wish, but my aptitude is lacking. For countless years, I have challenged the Sword God's Palace no less than 10,000 times, but I can only pass the 2nd level at most. I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to pass the 3rd level in this lifetime. After a pause, he looked at Lin Feng with a complicated expression. If you can do it, then you can return to the sect. If you can't, then don't come back, otherwise, he would kill Lin Feng. Hearing this, Lin Feng frowned. Sword God's Palace? Where is that place? The Sword God's Palace is located in the northeast region. It is a garden palace built by a mysterious senior Saint King. There are a total of 18 levels, and each level has 3 questions. As long as you can answer 2 of the questions correctly, you can pass. However, these questions are extremely strange, and those who can answer them correctly can be counted on one hand. Legend has it that every time you pass 3 levels of the Sword God's Palace, you will receive a reward from the Senior Saint King. In other words, if you pass the 3rd level, you will receive a reward. If you pass the 6th level, you will receive another reward. The further you go, the more generous the rewards are. Unfortunately, after so many years, I have never heard of anyone passing more than 10 levels. The strongest person seems to have only reached the 9th level, and he hasn't passed it yet. Mu Yun patiently explained. After he finished, he looked at Kong Yuan strangely. Why do you want Lin Feng to challenge the Sword God's Palace? That place doesn't test one's strength or talent. Even if he goes, he might not be able to go far. Kong Yuan sighed and said, because passing the 6th level of the Sword God's Palace is Lin Xian's lifelong wish. Moreover, there is no danger there. Even if he can't pass it, it won't affect him in the slightest. At most, it will only erase his memories of the questions. In the end, he still didn't want Lin Feng to die. In the past, he didn't think of a way to get the best of both worlds. Now that he thought of it, he naturally hoped that Lin Feng would be able to grow up smoothly and become a symbol of the Shuntian sect in the future, leading the Shuntian sect to greater heights. Sword God's Palace? What a strange place. Lin Feng's interest was immediately piqued. Which Saint King has so much free time to build such a strange place for people to pass through? Could it be that after passing the 3rd, 6th, and 9th level, he would be able to meet the legendary Saint King? Thinking of this, Lin Feng's eyes couldn't help but burn. That was the legendary Saint King. Chapter 541. If it was some other place, Lin Feng might not dare to challenge it. However, since Mu Yun had said that there was no danger in the Sword God's palace, and that once he passed the 3 stages, he would be able to obtain amazing rewards. Moreover, there was a chance of meeting the legendary Sage King. Lin Feng was immediately tempted. In his opinion, this was not a condition, but an opportunity. Okay, I agree. Lin Feng agreed without hesitation. I will try to challenge the Sword God's palace as soon as possible. Hearing this, Kong Yuan heaved a sigh of relief. It was not easy for him to come up with such a perfect solution. If Lin Feng did not agree, then he and Lin Feng could only meet on the battlefield. Fortunately, Lin Feng agreed in the end, giving him a reason to stop. Kong Yuan said, "As long as you go within 10,000 years, it will be fine. Don't be too anxious." Lin Feng said with a smile, "I am also very interested in the Sword God's palace. If possible, I will set off soon." "Well, you can set off whenever you want. I will wait for your good news in the Shuntian sect," Mu Yun said. "Before that, I won't be hosting your successor disciples' conferring ceremony for the time being. When you return successfully, I'll definitely invite all the heroes to host a grand conferring ceremony for you." Lin Feng did not have any objections to this. He smiled and said, "Let's talk about it after I succeed." At this time, the people nearby also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. They had been nervous for a long time because of Lin Feng. They were afraid that the sect master would kill Lin Feng at all costs in a fit of anger. If Lin Feng died, the Shuntian sect would lose a peerless genius and lose the opportunity to become a superpower. They would also offend the North Nether sect and the Sword sect, as well as Mu Yun, the Grand Deacon of the Weapon Refining Pavilion. This was not the result they wanted. Moreover, if such a genius died like this, wouldn't it be a pity? Jing Ting and Huang Wenbing's hearts also quietly fell back to their chests. They let go of the weapons in their hands that were ready to be wielded at any time, and their expressions returned to calmness. Nono was the only one who was still pursing her lips in dissatisfaction. She muttered in an almost inaudible voice, "TSK, what's there to be cocky about? If boss uses his trump card, who knows who will die?" Although it didn't know about Lin Feng's berserk move, as his contracted demon beast, it could still feel that Lin Feng was far from displaying his most terrifying strength. In other words, even at such a dangerous moment, Lin Feng still hadn't revealed his final trump card. And Lin Feng's trump card made even its soul tremble. Its power was absolutely terrifying. Kong Yuan might not be able to withstand Lin Feng's strongest attack. Time passed quietly. The next day, Mu Yun bid farewell and left. Dong Zhuo and Shen Tong stayed here temporarily, planning to go with Lin Feng to the Sword God's palace to broaden their horizons. Although they had long heard of the existence of the Sword God's palace, they had never gone there. Now that they had the time and opportunity to travel together with a senior like Lin Feng, they naturally had no reason to refuse. Although Lin Feng didn't want to have too much contact with them, he couldn't find any reason to send them away. So he could only take one step at a time. If they really couldn't do it, Lin Feng could just send Huang Jitian to help them if they needed help in the future. After staying in the sect for a few days, Lin Feng didn't cultivate. Instead, he toured the main peaks of the Shuntian sect with Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, Nono, Shen Tong, and Dong Zhuo. After joining the Shuntian sect for so long, Lin Feng had yet to properly explore the Shuntian sect. The Shuntian sect couldn't be considered big, but it wasn't small either. The 10 main peaks each had their own unique features. If one really wanted to visit them one by one, it would take a lot of time. During this time, Lin Feng inadvertently came across a shocking piece of news. Lin Rong's father, Kong Yuan's best friend, Lin Xian, was actually the vice-sect master of the Shuntian sect. For so many years, the Shuntian sect hadn't had a vice-sect master. The reason was that Kong Yuan missed his good friend too much and was unwilling to arrange for someone else to take the position. He wanted to leave the position to Lin Xian forever, using this method to pay tribute to Lin Xian. Thus, after Lin Xian, the Shuntian sect no longer had a vice-sect master. There was only one sect master, Kong Yuan, and 3 grand elders. Sect master is indeed a righteous person. When Lin Feng heard this, he couldn't help but sigh. He was a little resentful towards Kong Yuan in his heart, but his resentment didn't affect his appreciation and judgment of Kong Yuan. 3 days later, Lin Feng once again went to look for Kong Yuan. When he saw Kong Yuan, he was staring at a sculpture in a large hall at the Great Void Summit. Is that person vice-sect Master Lin Xian? Lin Feng looked pensive. After a long time, Kong Yuan recovered and asked, Lin Feng, why are you looking for me? Lin Feng also remembered the purpose of his visit and said, I'm here to inquire about something from Sect Master. He came to the Suiyang realm for 2 purposes. One was to cure Jingting, and the other was to deliver a letter. That's right, he had promised Senior Qing Mu in the Xingfeng Plain that he would deliver a letter to Fairy Zhu. He had always kept this matter in mind, but he didn't have the opportunity to do so in the past. Now that he was going out and far away from the Northwest Territory, he naturally wanted to do this matter while he was at it. However, he had asked many people, but to his surprise, no one knew of Fairy Zhu's existence. If it weren't for Senior Qing Mu's astonishing strength, being the most terrifying existence he had ever seen, and even giving him a 9th Revolution Saint artifact, he would probably think that Senior Qing Mu was playing with him. Perhaps Fairy Zhu didn't even exist in this world. What is it? Kong Yuan turned his head and looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng pondered and said, Sect Master, have you heard of Fairy Zhu? Hearing this, Kong Yuan's eyes suddenly shrank. There's a chance. When Lin Feng saw Kong Yuan's reaction, he knew that he had asked the right person this time. If Kong Yuan hadn't heard of Fairy Zhu, he would never have such a reaction. However, Lin Feng was very curious about who Fairy Zhu was and what kind of ability she had to make Kong Yuan have such a big reaction when he heard her name. Kong Yuan asked solemnly, How do you know of Fairy Zhu? Lin Feng asked doubtfully, Is Fairy Zhu's identity very special? Why can't I know? It's not that she's special. Kong Yuan hesitated for a moment and said, It's that very few people in the world know of her existence. He paused for a moment and continued, Fairy Zhu can be said to be known by everyone at the perfection stage of the Earth Saint realm. Even the Supreme Saint Kings don't dare to disregard her existence. Hiss! Lin Feng was shocked. So powerful! Could it be that Fairy Zhu is a saint ruler? Kong Yuan shook his head. That's not it. He glanced at Lin Feng. From Lin Feng's question, it could be seen that Lin Feng didn't know much about Fairy Zhu. He must have heard of her name by accident. Although she's not a saint ruler, she's a great perfection Earth Saint realm late stage Earth Saint realm. Among the 7 secret lands of longevity, she's one of the 4 great perfection Earth Saint. She's even injured a saint ruler. Which saint ruler would dare to ignore such a terrifying existence? Injuring a saint ruler at the great perfection Earth Saint realm was an impressive achievement. It was too frightening. Lin Feng didn't expect Fairy Zhu to be so powerful. However, after thinking about it, he felt that it was only natural. Before Senior Qing Mu killed the Purple Blood Demon Saint, he had said, Even if your master comes, I won't be afraid, let alone you. Who was the Purple Blood Demon Saint's master? He was a supreme saint ruler. However, Senior Qing Mu had said that. It was obvious how confident he was in his own strength. Since Senior Qing Mu was so powerful, how could Fairy Zhu, who had a close relationship with him, be weak? At this moment, he finally understood how terrifying Senior Qing Mu's strength was. He thought for a moment and asked, "Sect leader, have you heard of Qing Mu?" "Qing Mu?" This time, Kong Yuan looked puzzled. He shook his head and said, "I've never heard of this person." Lin Feng was stunned. This was completely different from what he had expected. However, he soon realized that if he remembered correctly, Senior Qing Mu had mentioned another name. It seemed to be Eastern Green Dragon. "What about Eastern Green Dragon?" Lin Feng asked tentatively. "Hiss!" Kong Yuan's reaction was even greater than before. He looked at Lin Feng in shock. "You even know this person?" This time he was really shocked. Lin Feng was delighted and quickly asked, "Sect leader, have you heard of this person?" "Yes, of course I have." Kong Yuan smiled bitterly. Eastern Green Dragon, who is ranked first among the 4 perfect earthly sovereigns, once exchanged dozens of blows with a saint ruler and was not at a disadvantage. Although he was injured by the saint ruler in the end, he successfully escaped. How could I not have heard of such an important person? To Kong Yuan, the 4 perfect earthly sovereigns were like supreme saint rulers. They were mysterious and unapproachable. In the eyes of these perfect earthly sovereigns, he was probably no different from an ant. The 4 perfect earthly sovereigns were Eastern Green Dragon, Fairy Zhu, Bai Chun, and Xian Ming. Any one of them was a ferocious existence. When the 4 of them worked together, they could even defeat a saint ruler. They were the legends of the perfect earthly saint realm. They were invincible legends and the ultimate goal of countless perfect earthly saints since ancient times. "Then do you know where Fairy Zhu is now?" Lin Feng asked expectantly. Kong Yuan did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Fairy Zhu is one of the 4 perfect earthly sovereigns. I'm only a mid-stage earthly saint realm's 7th layer. How would I know where she is?" "Oh, I see." Lin Feng sighed in disappointment. Kong Yuan asked curiously, "Where did you hear the names of Fairy Zhu and Eastern Green Dragon from?" Lin Feng laughed. "By accident, I heard it by accident." Seeing that he did not want to say more, Kong Yuan did not pursue the matter. He looked deeply at Lin Feng and finally reminded him, "I don't know why you're asking about Fairy Zhu's whereabouts, but you'd better not ask anyone casually in the future. If people mistakenly think that you're related to them, you won't be far from bad luck." Lin Feng frowned and asked in confusion, "Why?" "Why?" Kong Yuan said with an extremely respectful expression, "Because they once worked together to kill a saint ruler." Chapter 542. Killed a Saint King. Lin Feng's eyes widened as he sucked in a long breath of cold air. Hiss! He had imagined that Senior Qing Mu was very powerful, but no matter what, he did not expect him to be so powerful and have such a glorious battle record. The image of an old man who looked like he would step into a coffin at any time appeared in his mind. Lin Feng could not associate that figure with the legendary Eastern Azure Dragon who had killed a Saint King. What kind of existence was a Saint King? He was an invincible powerhouse who stood at the top of the food chain in the universe. It was not an exaggeration to say that a Saint King could kill hundreds of millions of Earth saints with a casual yawn. The 2 of them were not even on the same level of existence. A Saint King's might was like a prison, and a Saint King's grace was like the sea. The will of a Saint King was equivalent to the will of heaven and earth. A Saint King's words were law, and a single sentence could decide the universe. No matter how long an Earth Saint's lifespan was, it was still limited in the end. A Saint King's life was eternal. As long as heaven and earth were not destroyed, a Saint King would exist forever. They had witnessed the rise and fall of generations of geniuses and experienced the vicissitudes of life. They were like gods, indifferent to the myriad of things in the world. However, such an existence had actually fallen. Moreover, it was killed by 4 earth saints at the perfection stage. At this moment, Lin Feng could not help but feel a chill in his heart, and cold sweat broke out on his back. That's right. The 4 strongest powerhouses joined forces to kill a Saint King. Ordinary people don't know about this at all. Even I only heard about it from my elder brother by chance. Kong Yuan said in an incomparably respectful tone. After they killed that Saint King, they went their separate ways, and there was no news of them since then. Some people said that they died together with the Saint King in that great battle, and some said that they went into hiding to escape the pursuit of the other Saint Kings. However, until now, no one knows the truth of the matter. Whether they are dead or alive, and if they are alive, no one knows where they are. Of course they are still alive, Lin Feng said in his heart. At least, Senior Qing Mu and Fairy Zhu are definitely still alive. Of course, he only said this in his heart and didn't dare to say it out loud. Senior Qing Mu was in Wind Punishment Plane, and he was very clearly aware of that. On the other hand, Fairy Zhu was probably hiding in a secret place within the Suiyang realm. After all, if Fairy Zhu had perished, then Senior Qing Mu wouldn't have asked him to deliver the message. Speaking of the letter, Lin Feng was suddenly very curious about the contents of the letter. What message was this incomparably valiant and ferocious man trying to convey to Fairy Zhu? Lin Feng suppressed the curiosity in his heart and resisted the urge to tear open the letter. Of course, Kong Yuan did not know that countless thoughts were running through Lin Feng's mind at this moment. He sighed and turned to look at Lin Feng, saying, "Now do you understand why I told you not to inquire about their whereabouts?" Lin Feng nodded solemnly. "I understand. That was a peerless monster who had killed a Saint King. He was on the blacklist of all the Saint Kings. Unless Lin Feng was tired of living, he would definitely not be so rash as to inquire about their whereabouts again. If he was targeted by a Saint King because of this, or if he was mistaken as having some kind of relationship with them, then Lin Feng's fate would probably be very, very miserable. But if I don't inquire about their whereabouts, how am I supposed to find Fairy Zhu?" Lin Feng immediately became worried. This was an unsolvable problem. If he inquired about their whereabouts, the consequences would be unpredictable. If he didn't inquire about their whereabouts, then he wouldn't be able to complete Qing Mu's mission. Qing Mu had once slain Purple Blood Saint and even gave Purple Blood Saint's weapon to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was greatly indebted to him, so Lin Feng had to do everything he could to complete Qing Mu's mission. Forget it. I'll take it one step at a time. Who knows, I might have a chance to find out Fairy Zhu's whereabouts in the future. Lin Feng shook his head and stopped thinking about it for the time being. Since the matter was over, Lin Feng didn't stay any longer. He bade farewell and said, "Then I'll take my leave first." Kong Yuan stared at the human-shaped statue in the hall and waved his hand without turning his head. "Go on. I'll wait for your good news." Lin Feng turned and left. He quickly left the Great Void Peak. Only when Lin Feng was far away did Kong Yuan slowly turn his head. He looked in the direction Lin Feng left with a complicated expression. "He is really related to those 4? Kong Yuan muttered uncertainly. Although Lin Feng had tried his best to hide himself, from the few questions he had asked at the beginning, he had already revealed a lot of information. With Kong Yuan's wisdom, he could naturally guess some things. However, the truth was too shocking. Kong Yuan didn't dare and didn't want to believe it. He would rather guess wrongly. He sighed with a complicated expression. "Lin Feng, oh Lin Feng, what secrets are you hiding?" After living for so many years, this was the first time he had met a young man that he couldn't see through at all. Whether it was Shen Tong and Dongzhu's attitude towards Lin Feng, Mu Yun's importance to him, or Lin Feng's talent in cultivation and refining, all of it made Lin Feng even more mysterious. He was like a cloud. Every time you thought you understood him, you would discover that he was hiding even more. One could imagine that even if Lin Feng wasn't related to the four powerhouses, he must be hiding a shocking secret. Kong Yuan had a faint premonition that if this shocking mystery were to be solved one day, it would most likely shock a large group of people to their core. Ting Wenbing, no, get ready to go. After Lin Feng returned to the refining peak, he notified Jing Ting and the others. No cheered, "Yay, we can finally leave this place and go to the vast continent. Blood Peak Continent, no, am coming." Jing Ting and Huang Wenbing were also looking forward to it. They had been in the Suiyang realm for almost 15 years, and this was the first time they had traveled so far. "Wenbing, go and call Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo. Tell them to get ready to go," Lin Feng said to Huang Wenbing. Huang Wenbing nodded. "Okay, I'll go now." After a while, Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo followed Huang Wenbing to Lin Feng's small courtyard. "Senior Lin Feng, are we going to go?" Dong Zhuo asked. Lin Feng waved his hand and said, "Don't call me senior. If you think highly of me, just call me by my name or call me Brother Lin. As for senior, don't mention it again." This, it's decided. Lin Feng didn't give him a chance to speak and directly made the decision. "Is there anything else? If there's nothing else, we'll go now." Shin Tong and Dong Zhuo shook their heads. "If there's nothing else, we can go at any time." Lin Feng nodded. "Okay, let's go." When the group reached the exit of the Bright Moon House, they found that the exit was surrounded by many core disciples, led by Nan Yang and Mo Zhu. Nan Yang had already broken through to the late 5th stage of the Earth Realm. Mo Zhu had also successfully broken through to the mid-5th stage of the Earth Realm. This was all thanks to Lin Feng's stimulation. They were very grateful to Lin Feng in their hearts. Because of Lin Feng's appearance, their already cold blood had been awakened. It was as if they had returned to their youth and were filled with motivation to move forward. "Junior brother Lin Feng, I heard that you're leaving?" Nan Yang asked. Although Lin Feng was now a quasi-core disciple, the people of the Crafting Peak were still used to calling him junior brother. Perhaps in their view, senior brother Lin Feng was everyone's, but junior brother Lin Feng was theirs. This title would let them always remember that Lin Feng was, and even would be a member of the Crafting Peak in the future. Lin Feng nodded and immediately asked in confusion, "Senior brother Nanyang, what are you guys doing?" Mo Zhu smiled and interrupted, "We're here to send you off." Sun Yu and Lu, who looked at each other, then smiled and said, "Junior brother Lin Feng, you're about to go on a long journey. We're all poor people, so we can't give you anything useful. Therefore, we can only come together to send you off and express our feelings." Hearing this, Lin Feng was stunned. He raised his head and looked around. Those pairs of caring eyes, those sincere faces, made Lin Feng feel an inexplicable warmth in his heart. "Thank you." He suddenly didn't know how to speak. Nanyang laughed and patted him on the shoulder. "Haha, we're all disciples of the Crafting Peak, what's there to thank?" He pretended to be unhappy and said, "Don't tell me that you don't recognize us as your senior brothers after becoming a core disciple?" Cough cough. "Senior brother Nanyang, don't forget, there are still senior sisters and junior sisters." Mo Zhu protested. "Ha ha ha ha." Hearing this, everyone burst into laughter. The atmosphere of parting was also diluted by a little. Lin Feng said seriously, "I will remember you guys. No matter when, no matter where, you guys will always be my senior brothers and senior sisters." Mo Zhu said embarrassedly, "I'm just joking, you don't have to be so serious." Lin Feng did not deny it and smiled. He cupped his hands and said, "Okay, we should also go. Senior brothers and senior sisters, goodbye." Everyone said, "Goodbye." Under the gaze of the disciples on both sides of the road, Lin Feng and his group slowly walked through the crowd. After walking out of the Bright Moon House, they waved to the disciples. Then, they took a deep breath and flew into the air, towards the teleportation formation at the foot of the mountain. He did not know if he would have a chance to come back. Therefore, his heart was extremely heavy. Many disciples of the crafting peak also understood this. Therefore, although they looked very relaxed and laughed, their hearts were very heavy, as if there was a huge rock pressing down on them. Since Kong Yuan mentioned the Sword God's Palace last time, many disciples went to cram in knowledge about the Sword God's Palace. Therefore, they understood how difficult this condition was. The Sword God's Palace had existed for hundreds of millions of years, but until now, no one had passed through the 9th level. Not to mention the 9th stage, even the 6th stage was rarely passed by anyone. Since ancient times, the number of people who had passed the 6th stage could be counted on one hand. At the very most, there were probably less than 100 people. Although not all of these 100 people had cultivated to the complete Earth Saint realm, every single one of them, with the exception of those who had died young, had achieved unimaginable achievements in almost all walks of life. It could be said that those who passed through the 6th level of the Sword God's Palace were definitely super talents. However, their talents were not in cultivation or crafting. Therefore, if Lin Feng wanted to pass through the 6th level, the difficulty was no different from ascending to heaven. Chapter 543. I believe that he will be able to pass the 6th level. He is so powerful that there will be no problem. Nanyang clenched his fists and said firmly to Mo Zhu and the others. He was trying to persuade Mo Zhu and the others, but he was also trying to persuade himself. Although he said so, how could he be confident? Lin Feng was powerful, but the Sword God's Palace did not test his talent or strength. Even Lin Feng himself was not sure how many levels he could pass. Mo Zhu looked at Lin Feng and the others for a long time before she said, "I'm going to cultivate." She scanned the crowd and said casually, "You guys should work hard and cultivate. Take advantage of this time to strengthen your power. I hope that when Lin Feng comes back, he will see a different version of us. Don't be like this time. We want to help him, but we don't have the strength to intervene in the matter between him and the sect master." "Yes, senior sister." Everyone's eyes lit up. "Ting do you think we can come back here?" Lin Feng asked while flying against the wind. Jing Ting comforted him. "Yes, Lin Feng, you can definitely pass the 6th level." Lin Feng smiled bitterly. "You know what kind of place the Sword God's Palace is. Do you really think I can pass the 6th level?" Since ancient times, less than 100 people had passed the 6th level of the Sword God's Palace. How could Lin Feng be so confident that he could pass the 6th level? Jing Ting hesitated for a moment, but then her eyes became firm. "I believe in you." Her gaze contained a reckless trust, a kind of blind trust. "Thank you, Ting Although he knew that Jing Ting was comforting him, Lin Feng still felt very happy. Huang Wenbing smiled and said, "Boss, you are usually so smart. Why are you so confused now?" Hearing this, Lin Feng was puzzled. "What's wrong?" "Boss, think about it. With your talent, your strength will surpass the Patriarch sooner or later, and it won't take long. At that time, even if you can't pass the 6th stage of the Sword God Palace, you can still return to the Shuntian sect. Do you think the Patriarch will chase you out? Even if he wants to chase us out, he needs to have the strength to do so." Huang Wenbing winked and said, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. That's true. Lin Feng had absolute confidence in his strength. He did not have the confidence to pass the 6th level, but he was confident that he could raise his strength to the level of a complete Earth Saint in the shortest time possible. For a utmost supremacy to possess strength comparable to an Earth Sage Great Perfection Realm Cultivator, things would definitely get interesting. Perhaps, in this world, only a freak like Lin Feng would be able to contend against a Great Perfection Earth Sage with the cultivation of a Supreme Being. When it came to the limit of a Supreme Being, Lin Feng was sometimes puzzled. He did not know how powerful he would be when he fully comprehended the 7 supreme laws and mastered them. Would he reach the level of the legendary 4 supreme beings? The four supreme beings were invincible in the complete Earth Saint realm. Their strength represented the limit of the complete Earth Saint realm. Lin Feng did not expect to break this limit because it was too unrealistic. After all, above this limit was the level of the legendary Saint King. I'm looking forward to the day when I fully comprehend the seven supreme laws. Lin Feng could not help but secretly look forward to it. After being enlightened by Huang Wenbing's words, Lin Feng's mood suddenly relaxed. Even the people around him felt a trace of inexplicable joy, as if they were affected by an invisible infection. Since Lin Feng, Huang Wenbing, and Jing Ting were talking through voice transmission, Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo did not hear their conversation at all. They thought that they had been silent all this time. Senior Brother Lin Feng. Senior Brother Lin Feng. Beside the teleportation array, the two core disciples' attitudes became more respectful. Lin Feng said modestly, "We need to use the teleportation array. Sorry to trouble you." "No trouble, no trouble." The two waved their hands and stepped aside. Lin Feng smiled and nodded at the two. "Goodbye." In the next moment, Lin Feng and the others disappeared. "Goodbye." The two looked at the disappearing figure and said quietly, "Goodbye, we will wait for your return, Senior Brother Lin Feng." In the northwest region of the Bloodridge continent, there was a mansion adjacent to the Shuntian prefecture called Daughter's Mansion. Daughter's Mansion was the place where many female earth cultivators gathered in the Bloodridge continent. This small Daughter's Mansion accounted for about 20 to 30% of the female earth cultivators in the Bloodridge continent. In addition, the Daughter's Mansion had a pleasant climate, similar to the Jiangnan River on Earth. It was full of gentle beauties, so it was named Daughter's Mansion. Compared to the Shuntian prefecture, Daughter's Mansion was less vicious and murderous. It was more peaceful. In addition, the overall strength of Daughter's Mansion was above that of the Shuntian prefecture. Moreover, the difference was huge. Although there were no superforces in Daughter's Mansion, there were a total of 6 first-rate forces that were on the same level as the Shuntian sect. As for the second-rate forces, there were as many as 30 of them. In the entire northwest region, Daughter's Mansion was considered a powerful mansion. Other than Dawn Heaven sect, North Nether sect, and Sword sect, Daughter's Mansion could be ranked in the top 3. Cherry Blossom City was a large city in Daughter's Mansion. It was a place that one had to pass through to reach the northeast region. It was extremely prosperous. Under the scorching sun, there was an endless stream of people in Cherry Blossom City. On the streets, young and beautiful women could be seen everywhere. On the contrary, there were not as many male earth cultivators as compared to other prefectures. The ratio of men to women was an astonishing one, too. In the middle of Cherry Blossom City's most prosperous street, Jade Road, a slender figure slowly walked through the street, attracting the attention of many young women. It was a white-robed man with a white rope tied around his head and a white fan in his hand. His skin was sickly pale. He had a clean and handsome face. His face was so handsome that many women couldn't help but feel jealous when they saw it. It was like a perfect masterpiece of the heavens. Even though he was already middle-aged, his charm didn't decrease at all. Instead, the vicissitudes of life added to his charm. He didn't care about the infatuated gazes around him. He walked at a steady pace. His posture couldn't be described as elegant, as if he was born to be a noble. He walked silently as if he was walking on a narrow path. Other than him, there was no one else. It made people feel an inexplicable sense of loneliness, comparable to the top 10 deity-ranked geniuses on the must-kill list. In less than 20 years, he cultivated from the 3rd level of the Earth stage to the 6th level of the Earth stage. How interesting! As if he thought of something interesting, the corners of the middle-aged man's lips curled up slightly. This slight curl was like 100 flowers blooming. In an instant it stunned the people around him. Those who were looking at him all fell into infatuation. They couldn't move their eyes away from him. His name was Bai Zhanfeng and he was an assassin. But he wasn't an ordinary assassin because he was an expert at the peak of the Earth Saint realm. Bai Zhanfeng came from the water-developing secret ground of the Five Elements secret ground. He was one of the 3 peak Earth Saint realm assassins from the Five Elements secret ground. In the northwest region, no one knew how strong he was because those who had experienced his strength had all gone to hell. But in the water-developing secret ground, Bai Zhanfeng was very famous. That was because even though he was only at the middle stage of the 7th level of the Earth stage, he had the record of killing someone at the late stage of the 7th level of the Earth stage. Bai Zhanfeng was a very strange person. He loved cleanliness. In other words, he was obsessed with cleanliness. Moreover, it was very serious. He loved cleanliness more than most women. He could not tolerate any part of his body being stained with dust. He bathed 10 times a day, changed his clothes 3 times a day, and never stayed in a restaurant. He had many eccentricities and habits that no one could understand. But that still couldn't offset his charm. Countless women were attracted to him like moths to a flame. They madly fell in love with him. But he, Bai Zhanfeng, was destined to not fall in love with anyone as he was born with a flaw. He wants to go to Sword God Palace, so he has to pass by this path. Looking at the time, it should be within these few days. To be more precise, it should be the day after tomorrow. Bai Zhanfeng walked aimlessly. He had a faint smile on his face. That smile was like a deadly poison. How should I end him this time? He had been troubled by this problem for a long time, but he still couldn't think of a satisfactory solution. Killing was an art. Bai Zhanfeng wouldn't allow anyone to taint this art. Naturally, he wouldn't destroy this art either. He had a firm belief in the art of killing. Before each attack, he would study for a long time until he found a plan that he was satisfied with. Otherwise, he would rather not attack and wait for the next chance. No matter who the person he wanted to kill was, whether it was a sect master or an ordinary disciple. No matter how strong the person he wanted to kill was, whether it was a peak honorable Earth Saint or complete Earth Saint, he would treat it seriously, just like how he treated his own belief. He could disrespect his opponent, disrespect a person who was about to die, but he must respect his own beliefs, and respect the noble art of killing. He might not be the strongest out of the 3 peak Earth Saint assassins in the northwest region, but he was definitely the most special one. At the same time, he was the most efficient one. He didn't attack many times, but he never failed. Please, please, please. A nervous voice spread from behind. The person who spoke was a really beautiful girl. Bai Zhanfeng stopped and turned around. He looked at the girl and smiled. Hello, are you calling me? He was really polite and his voice was really gentle. A scholarly aura surged towards her. The girl opened her mouth like she was mesmerized by his smile. She looked at him and her mind went blank. She totally forgot what she wanted to say. If there is nothing else, then I will leave first. Is that okay? Bai Zhanfeng said politely. His smile didn't decrease at all. Sure. The girl muttered. Thank you. Bai Zhanfeng turned around and continued to walk. He walked casually like he was just taking a stroll. Only when Bai Zhanfeng was far away did the girl come back to her senses. She looked at the elegant back view and sighed regretfully. Chapter 544. After arriving at Ingman City, Bai Zhanfeng bought a small courtyard and tidied it himself. He laid a few layers of white muslin on the bed before resting in satisfaction. Bai Zhanfeng didn't have any servants or subordinates. He was used to being alone because no one could satisfy him. Some things had to be done by him personally. Thus, it didn't matter if he had any servants or not. About 6 to 8 hours later, Bai Zhanfeng woke up. He took a shower seriously and changed into a set of white clothes before heading out. When he reached the outskirts of Ingman City, He looked left and right, then flew forward for about 10 kilometers before stopping. This was a small valley, and there were 2 mountains on both sides of the road. One was high and the other was low. He muttered with satisfaction, "This is the place. This place has great feng shui and is suitable for burial." He landed slowly and started to make arrangements. Time flowed by, and Lin Feng's group had already left the Shuntian sect for 3 months. Even if they used the transmission array, it still took them a full 2 months to leave the Shuntian prefecture and enter the Maiden prefecture. The Maiden prefecture was even larger than the Shuntian prefecture, and they had only covered a third of it in a month's time. It was hard to imagine how long it would take them to reach the Sword God Palace if they didn't use the transmission array. "Nono, can you stop staring at those girls?" Lin Feng looked at Nono helplessly. Huang Wenbing said, "Lecherous bird." Nono stared at Huang Wenbing and said, "You are the lecherous bird. I am just curious as to why there are so many human girls here. Furthermore, I like god beasts that are as beautiful as me. I am not interested in you human girls." Along the way, Huang Wenbing and Nono had many similar bickering sessions. Jing Ting smiled as she looked at Nono and Huang Wenbing. The bickering between the two was like a breeze in summer. It made them feel a little more fun. Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo didn't talk much. However, compared to the beginning, they weren't as scared of Lin Feng. Lin Feng was very easygoing and easy to get along with. This was something they didn't expect, and also something they were pleasantly surprised about. Lin Feng glanced at Nono and was too lazy to talk anymore. He looked at Jing Ting and asked, "Are you tired?" Jing Ting shook her head, "I am not tired. It's just that I have spent most of my time in the teleportation formation and I am a little bored." Lin Feng said apologetically, "I am sorry." In the next moment, Jing Ting's slender finger covered Lin Feng's mouth. She shook her head and said, "Don't say sorry again. I don't like to hear those words." Looking at this lovely girl, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel a trace of warmth in his heart. He didn't know how many lifetimes of good fortune he had accumulated to be able to meet such a good woman. "Miss Shin, Brother Dong, how long will it take for us to reach the Sword God's palace?" Lin Feng asked. Dong Zhuo thought for a while and said, "According to the current speed, I am afraid it will take more than a year." Shen Tong nodded and said, "Because some of the teleportation formations between cities are not connected, sometimes we have to fly from one city to another. Therefore, the time will be greatly affected. If all the neighboring cities are connected by teleportation formations, we can save a lot of time. We may even reach the Sword God's palace in half a year." The Bloodridge continent was too big. It took them more than 3 months to cover half of the distance in the northwest region. They also relied on teleportation formations to save tens of thousands of times the time. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to reach the Sword God's palace even if they had thousands or even tens of thousands of years. This was only from the northwest region to the northeast region. They were 2 neighboring regions. If they were in the southeast region, the time would be several times longer. More than a year. Why is it so long? Nono exclaimed. More than a year. Including the few months they spent on the journey, it would be 1.5 years or even close to 2 years. Dong Zhuo was puzzled. It's only been a little over a year. Is it very long? Shen Tong was slightly puzzled. A little over a year was nothing to them, right? However, the same amount of time meant a lot to Lin Feng, Huang Wenbing, and Nono. Nono said angrily, "Only a little over a year? Is a little over a year a short time?" Dong Zhuo was stunned by Nono's question. He really didn't know how to answer it, because as far as he was concerned, he didn't even need to think about it because he already knew the answer. Lin Feng rubbed Nono's head helplessly and said, "All right, Nono, that's enough." Nono jumped up and down on Lin Feng's shoulder and said, "Boss, how many times have I told you? I'm a grown-up now. I'm not a child anymore. Can you stop rubbing my head?" If those beautiful divine beasts see this, how can I play with them? Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Yes, yes, yes. Our Nono is already an adult, no, an adult divine beast. Nono corrected him. Wrong, an adult divine beast. It smiled proudly, and a beautiful one at that. Look at how proud you are. Huang Wenbing, who was looking at the map, couldn't help but raise his head and roll his eyes. Then he turned to Lin Feng and said, Boss, we're now in Shunning City. Next, we have to set off from Shunning City, pass through Ingman City, and go all the way to Huaguang City for the next transmission. With our current speed, this journey will take about 10 days or so. The northwest region was still peaceful. They rarely encountered bandits or robbers. Even if they did, most of them were just small thieves. With the strength of Lin Feng's group, they were naturally unimpeded. No one dared to stop them. In the blink of an eye, another 6 days had passed. On this day, they finally arrived at Ingman City, a large city. Ingman City's transmission array was well connected, leading to many places. But unfortunately, among these transmission routes, none of them were what Lin Feng's group needed. So even though the city was very prosperous and lively, they still couldn't stop their footstep. Ingman City was very large. Lin Feng's group spent half a day to pass through half of the city. After such a long journey, everyone is tired. Why don't we take a rest? Lin Feng asked everyone's opinion. Ting what do you think? Jing Ting naturally followed Lin Feng's lead. She agreed with whatever Lin Feng said. Huang Wenbing and Nono also followed Lin Feng's lead. They never disobeyed Lin Feng's decision. Shun Tong and Dong Zhui didn't dare to oppose Lin Feng's decision. In their hearts, Lin Feng was a mysterious super expert. Although Lin Feng was easygoing, it didn't mean they could mess around in front of Lin Feng. They're here. In an unbelievably tidy little courtyard, a white-clothed man sat beside a stone table. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He gently drank the clear wine in the white jade cup, then put away the cup and the wine pot on the stone table. He slowly got up and walked outside. Not long after, he arrived outside a restaurant. Frowning slightly, he straightened his sleeves and walked into the restaurant. After entering the restaurant, he ordered a table of dishes and wine, then walked straight upstairs to the balcony. As expected, the place where he passed by attracted a lot of attention and amazement. The white-clothed man walked all the way to a small wooden table at the edge of the balcony. He stopped and carefully wiped the stool before sitting down slowly. Lin Feng, Jing Ting, and the others were sitting around the small wooden table. They were chatting with smiles on their faces. The white-clothed man's arrival naturally attracted the attention of Lin Feng and the others. They had never seen such a handsome man before. They couldn't help but marvel at the wonders of the Creator. It was indeed incredible that a man's appearance could be so exquisite. A woman's beauty could cause the downfall of a city. A man's handsomeness could also suffocate people. Moreover, the white-clothed man had an elegant and scholarly aura, which made people have a good impression of him. Not only did Lin Feng and the others notice him, but the diners around them, especially the young women, also noticed him. Unlike Lin Feng and the others, the young women couldn't help but look at the white-clothed man with infatuation. It could be imagined that such a man was destined to be the center of attention no matter where he went. His every move attracted people's attention. Soon, the waiter of the restaurant carried a tray upstairs and came to the white-clothed man's side. He said respectfully, "Young master, this is the wine you ordered." He placed the wine pot on the table and then retreated respectfully. The white-clothed man called out to him and said, "Please wait a moment." Even when facing the waiter of the restaurant, a commoner at the bottom of the Suiyang realm, he was still so humble and polite. The waiter immediately stopped and said respectfully, "Young master, do you have any other orders?" "Little brother, I want to ask you something," the white-clothed man said with a smile. "Young master, just ask." I'll tell you everything I know. The waiter felt flattered and hurriedly promised. Then I'll thank you in advance. The white-clothed man cupped his hands and asked, Little brother, do you know the route to Huaguang City through the teleportation formation in Ingman City? Or so long as it leads to the Sword God's palace? The waiter said with an embarrassed expression, Young master, I'm only a waiter of the restaurant, so I don't know the route to the teleportation formation. I'm afraid I won't be able to help you. Please forgive me. The white-clothed man shook his head and said, No, no, no. I didn't consider it carefully. There's no need to blame yourself. As he spoke, he couldn't help but frown and muttered, This is troublesome. Who should I ask? The young women in the surroundings couldn't help but feel their hearts ache when they saw him frown slightly, and they had the impulse to go over and hug him. The Sword God's palace? Lin Feng looked at the white-clothed man with surprise and said, Could it be that you're going to the Sword God's palace? The white-clothed man seemed to have just noticed Lin Feng and the others, and he said with surprise, How did all of you know? After that, he said, Could it be that you know the way to the Sword God's palace? As he spoke, he stood up and cupped his hands in an extremely solemn manner as he bowed and said, I just left the clan, and I was in a hurry and forgot to bring the map. If you know where it is, then I hope you won't be stingy with your guidance. I'll definitely thank you generously. An imperceptible arc arose on the corners of his mouth. The fish had taken the bait. Chapter 545. Looking at his anxious and sincere look, everyone, including Lin Feng, believed him. Lin Feng chuckled. If you ask others, perhaps not many would know. However, we are going in this direction, so we are familiar with the route. He paused and said slowly, Although Ingman City is a large city, the teleportation formation here doesn't lead to Huaguang City. If you want to go to Sword God's palace, you have to go from here to Huaguang City. Then, use the teleportation formation in Huaguang City. This is the shortest route and it is my personal suggestion. Of course, if you are not in a hurry, you can choose another route. Thank you, young master. The man in white cupped his hands and said seriously, You have done me a great favor. However, in his heart, he was somewhat astonished. Because he had guessed that once Lin Feng and the others knew that he was going to Sword God's palace, they would invite him to go with them. However, Lin Feng didn't mention it at all. It is a small matter. Don't mention it. Lin Feng waved his hand. I am Baijian Feng. May I know your names? The man in white, who was Baijian Feng, asked politely. Lin Feng, Jing Ting, and the others looked at each other. I am Lin Feng. This is Jing Ting on my left and Huang Wenbing on my right, Lin Feng said with a faint smile. Shen Tong said coldly, Shen Tong. Dong Zhuo chuckled and said, I am Dong Zhuo. Shen Tong is introverted and not good at communication. I didn't do it on purpose. Brother Bai, please don't take it to heart. Haha, Miss Shen is an emotional person. How can I take it to heart? Baijian Feng said with a smile. By the way, are you going to Sword God's palace too? Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo turned their heads and looked at Lin Feng. Jing Ting and Huang Wenbing, on the other hand, remained silent. Nono also tactfully shut his mouth, not daring to casually reply. Lin Feng was silent for a while. Then, a faint smile appeared on his face and he said, That's right. We are going to Sword God's palace too. That's great. Baijian Feng was pleasantly surprised, but then he said, Brother Lin, Brother Dong, Brother Huang, Miss Jing, Miss Shen, please forgive me for asking. Since we are going the same way, can we travel together? Since Lin Feng did not bring it up, then he would take the initiative to bring it up. He wanted to see how Lin Feng would react. Shen Tong glanced at him indifferently and remained silent. Dong Zhuo said, You can only ask Brother Lin about that. Brother Lin has the final say in our group. Huang Wenbing nodded and said, If boss agrees, we will agree. If boss doesn't agree, we won't agree either. It's that simple. This Bai Zhanfeng was stunned, and then he looked at Lin Feng in anticipation. Brother Lin. Facing Bai Zhanfeng's expectant gaze, no one would be able to reject his request, but Lin Feng was different. Although he had a good impression of Bai Zhanfeng, there was a voice in his heart that told him that this person was not as simple as he looked. If they traveled together, there would be many variables and unknowns. Everything would be out of his control. Lin Feng didn't like that feeling. He felt like Bai Zhanfeng was trying to get close to them. Lin Feng's hesitation made the surrounding girls unhappy with Lin Feng. From their conversation, one could understand that Bai Zhanfeng and Lin Feng were heading to the same place. Hence, to anyone, Bai Zhanfeng's request was reasonable and normal. Unfortunately, they weren't Lin Feng and couldn't make the decision for Lin Feng. Otherwise, they would have agreed. Even if Bai Zhanfeng didn't ask, they would have invited Bai Zhanfeng too. I'm sorry, we don't know each other and don't understand each other. If we travel together, we might get into an argument and hurt our relationship. If that's the case, why don't we go our separate ways? If we're fated, we'll naturally meet again in the Sword God's palace. Lin Feng politely refused. Huang Wenbing, Jing Ting, and Nono looked at Lin Feng in shock. They couldn't understand Lin Feng's decision because to them, one more person wasn't a big deal. Moreover, they had a good impression of Bai Zhanfeng, so they didn't want to reject his request so rashly. But Lin Feng was the one who made the decision. Since Lin Feng had made his decision, they could only support him unwaveringly. Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo didn't have any opinions because to them, it was normal for a super expert like Lin Feng to make such a decision. Brother Lin, you don't have to apologize. I should be the one apologizing. I didn't think it through properly, so I made such a request. Bai Zhanfeng wasn't angry at all. Instead, he blamed himself. However, from his tone, one could hear the deep disappointment in his voice. In his heart, however, he was deep in thought. Why did he refuse to travel with me? A trace of undetectable surprise flashed across his brows. Could it be that he noticed something? But he didn't reveal anything. Even if he did, normal people wouldn't be able to notice it in such a short period of time. Therefore, he couldn't understand Lin Feng's decision. Lin Feng's rejection and Bai Zhanfeng's disappointed and lonely expression made the surrounding girls speak up. A pretty girl with an oval face stood up angrily and spoke up for Bai Zhanfeng. You are Lin Feng, right? Why didn't you agree to let young Master Bai go with you? Did he ever offend you? Hearing that, Lin Feng was shocked. I have never met Brother Bai before. How did I offend him? Since he didn't offend you and you are going to the same place, it's a long journey. Young Master Bai is alone and unfamiliar with the road. Why didn't you agree to let him go with you? Are you so cold and heartless? The young girl said aggressively, Don't use your reasons. From what I see, you are going to travel together. One more person means one more layer of protection. You can also take care of each other. Don't treat others as fools. The oval-faced woman's words became a fuse that resonated in the hearts of the surrounding people. That's right. Why is this person so cold and heartless? Young Master Bai is alone and has no one to rely on. Anyone with a bit of sympathy wouldn't do that. Young Master Bai, don't be afraid. If he doesn't agree, we can go with you. That's right. He is heartless. There are always people who are willing to help him. Pooh. He looks so well-dressed and sanctimonious. I wonder if his heart is made of iron or stone. People were getting more and more excited. There was even a girl who said something even worse. Maybe he is not cold and heartless. He is just jealous. What the girl said attracted everyone's attention. Her words were getting more and more mean. Think about it. Young Master Bai is so handsome. Which man wouldn't feel inferior standing next to him? This Lin Feng, from what I see, is just jealous of young Master Bai. He will feel inferior in front of young Master Bai. People will only notice young Master Bai and not him. After he finished speaking, it did seem to make some sense. The people nearby almost subconsciously agreed with this woman's speculation. They couldn't think of any other reason that would make Lin Feng refuse to go with young Master Bai. Suddenly, people around were looking at Lin Feng with disdain. They didn't even try to hide their disdain. Many people even started to talk about it more intensely. The cacophony of voices caused the restaurant to seem chaotic, and the atmosphere seemed to be somewhat restless. I just refused a stranger to go with me, right? Other than that, I don't think I have done anything that would make people angry, right? Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If he didn't experience it himself, he wouldn't believe that such a thing could happen in the world. However, this also proved Bai Zhanfeng's charisma. At this moment, when they heard the discussions in the surroundings, even Huang Wenbing, Jing Ting, Nuan Nuo, Shen Tong, and Dong Zhuo couldn't help but size Lin Feng up with rather strange gazes, as if they were confirming if Lin Feng was really as they said. Ahem. You don't think so, do you? Lin Feng was shocked. Chapter 546. Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, and the others naturally didn't suspect Lin Feng. The reason why they looked at Lin Feng with a weird gaze was because they also felt that this matter was a little weird. Lin Feng only rejected a stranger and it caused such a huge reaction. It was indeed a little confusing. Huang Wenbing thought about it and said, "Boss, why don't we let him follow us? Anyway, with our strength, we aren't afraid of him playing any trick." The crowd was furious. If Lin Feng didn't change his mind, who knew what would happen next? Forget it. Since Brother Bai is willing to follow us, then let's head out together. Lin Feng had to make this decision that he felt was a little inappropriate. Bai Zhanfeng pretended to be surprised and said happily, "Thank you, Brother Lin. That would be great." Seeing that Lin Feng had agreed, the surrounding young women stopped their discussion and gave Lin Feng a look that said, "At least you know your place." Then, they all looked at the white figure in a daze. They didn't move at all, like they had turned into statues. Bai Zhanfeng was obviously used to it. He didn't have any weird reaction and continued to do his own thing. Around 2 incense sticks later, Lin Feng got up and paid the bill. Then, he turned around and looked at Bai Zhanfeng. "Brother Bai, we are ready to head out. Are you okay?" "I am already prepared." Bai Zhanfeng smiled. Lin Feng nodded and looked around. Then, he said to Shen Tong, Dong Zhuo, and the others, "Let's go." The group quickly walked out of the restaurant and walked along the street to the east gate of Yingman City. With Bai Zhanfeng, who was so handsome that he didn't look like a human, they naturally attracted a lot of attention. They were like fireflies in the night, beetles in the sky. No matter where they went, they were the center of attention. People's gazes followed them as they walked. After leaving the city, Lin Feng and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Huang Wenbing saw that Bai Zhanfeng acted like nothing was wrong and asked curiously, "Brother Bai, why didn't you wear a mask? Aren't you tired of receiving so much attention for such a long time?" If someone else had said this, it might have sounded sarcastic, but when Huang Wenbing said it, there was no such feeling. Bai Zhanfeng paused for a moment before revealing his charming smile. "It's okay, I'll be fine once I get used to it. As for the mask..." He shook his head. "I think that beautiful things shouldn't be covered up. If others like to see it, then let them see it. It's not like I'm at a disadvantage. Besides, I don't really like wearing a mask because it makes me feel like I'm living in a dark place. I hate the dark." What kind of logic is this? Huang Wenbing's eyes widened as he wondered. Nono pursed her lips. "I don't see anything nice about you." This little thing's tone was a little arrogant. "Kiki, although I have never seen someone more handsome than me, I have to admit that as a beast, your appearance is comparable to mine," Bai Zhanfeng praised. He had noticed Nono long ago. With Nono's appearance, even if it was in its most low-profile form, few people could ignore its existence. If it changed its form and became a little bigger and darker, it would be even more eye-catching. Nono would probably be on par with Bai Zhanfeng then. Unfortunately, Nono was used to being low profile. It had been a long time since it showed its stunning appearance in front of others. Even Lin Feng hadn't seen Nono like that for many years. In its own words, its beauty was for those beautiful flying demonic beasts to appreciate, not for humans. You are right. Nono smiled in delight. At this moment, Lin Feng suddenly asked, "By the way, Brother Bai, may I ask where you are from? With your looks, if you were from the northwest region, you would have become famous a long time ago, right?" He wanted to get some useful information from Bai Zhanfeng, but Bai Zhanfeng didn't give him the chance. Bai Zhanfeng smiled. "Brother Lin, you are mistaken. I am not from the northwest region. I am not even from the Suiyang realm." Hearing that, Lin Feng, Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, Shen Tong, Dong Zhuo, and Nono all paused as they became vigilant. If he wasn't from the Suiyang realm, could he be from the Five Elements Secret Lands? "Why are you looking at me like that?" Bai Zhanfeng asked in shock. Dong Zhuo frowned and asked coldly, "Are you from the Five Elements Secret Lands?" The expressions of Shen Tong and the others also became unprecedentedly serious. They could imagine that if they confirmed Bai Zhanfeng's identity, and if he was really from the Five Elements Secret Lands, they wouldn't hesitate to attack him. The enmity between the Five Elements Secret Lands and the Suiyang realm had lasted for countless years. The War of Longevity had decided that the Five Elements Secret Lands and the Suiyang realm couldn't coexist peacefully. This enmity that had lasted for countless years was deeply ingrained in everyone's bones. Whether it was the people from the Five Elements Secret Lands or the people from the Suiyang realm, once they saw each other, they would fight to the death without any reason. "Can you not let your imagination run wild?" Bai Zhanfeng said helplessly. Shen Tong said coldly, "We are not letting our imagination run wild. You just said that you are not from the Suiyang realm." Bai Zhanfeng was stunned for a moment before realization dawned on him. "I see. You misunderstood." "Misunderstood? Yes, I am not from the Suiyang realm, but I am also not from the Five Elements Secret Lands." Bai Zhanfeng explained calmly, "I am from the Vast Waves realm. Have you heard of the Vast Waves realm? Among the countless high-level realms, it is one of the top 10 realms. To be honest, I, Bai Zhanfeng, am quite famous in the Vast Waves realm. If you don't believe me, you can ask an Earth Cultivation Realm cultivator from the Vast Waves realm." He looked at Lin Feng and the others with a smile. He had a calm expression and didn't seem to be lying at all. After listening to Bai Zhanfeng's explanation, Shen Tong and Dong Zhuo were stunned for a moment before they reacted. At the same time, Huang Wenbing, Jing Ting, and Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. It was good that he wasn't from the Five Elements Secret Lands. Otherwise, they would have to kill him. The Vast Waves realm was a top-notch high-level realm. Among the millions of high-level realms, the Vast Waves realm was ranked in the top 10. It was definitely an extremely powerful realm. Such a realm had tens of thousands of subsidiary realms around it. Among these subsidiary realms, there was no lack of high-level realms. In other words, the Vast Waves realm was the amalgamation of the Vast Waves realm and its subsidiary realms. It was collectively known as the Vast Waves realm. Any one of the top 10 high-level realms was an extremely powerful existence. So Brother Bai is from the Vast Waves realm. Sorry for the disrespect. Dong Zhuo cupped his hands and smiled. Those who came from the Vast Waves realm had the same status as the natives of the Suiyang realm. The outstanding ones had a much higher status than the natives of the Suiyang realm. This was because the Vast Waves realm and a few other high-level realms had at least one or several Earth Sage Great Perfection experts. These Earth Sage Great Perfection experts had made a name for themselves in the Suiyang realm. Therefore, those who came from the same realm as them would benefit from it. Bai Zhanfeng smiled faintly and said, "It's nothing. As they spoke, they had already flown some distance away from Cherry Blossom City. What surprised Lin Feng and the others was that Bai Zhanfeng's speed wasn't slow at all. No matter how fast they flew, Bai Zhanfeng was able to follow them with ease. It was as though he was taking a stroll in the park. For a time, Bai Zhanfeng's image in their hearts became even more mysterious. However, no matter how they thought about it, they wouldn't be able to guess that the handsome man in front of them was a Earth Sage Great Perfection expert. Soon, the group of people flew to the sky above a canyon. Suddenly, Bai Zhanfeng, who had been following Lin Feng and the others, flew down gracefully. "I'm very happy to have spent so much time with all of you. However, the will of the heavens wants all of you to perish. Our fate will end here. I wish all of you good luck from now on." Bai Zhanfeng flapped his wings and glided in the air like a huge bird. His voice soon disappeared in the wind. The dagger was revealed. Not good. Lin Feng, Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, Nono, Shun Tong, and Dong Zhuo were shocked. Their expressions changed. They were tricked. Lin Feng didn't expect that he would still fall for Bai Zhanfeng's trick even though he had been so careful. Before they could fly away, a shocking change occurred in the sky. An icy cold air that could make one's soul tremble rapidly attacked from all directions, sealing off all directions. There was no way to escape from the front, back, left, right, up and down. "That is the misty ice," Dong Zhuo exclaimed. "Everyone be careful. If we touch that thing we will be finished." Shin Tong lost her usual calmness and said in a panic, "The misty ice is extremely powerful. Even a Earth LV8 expert would not be able to escape from it if he touches it." At this moment they were in despair. However, in that despair, there was still a glimmer of hope hidden deep within. This glimmer of hope came from Lin Feng. It came from Lin Feng's fake identity as a Earth LV8 expert. Will he help us? This thought flashed through Shun Tong and Dong Zhuo's minds. However, they didn't know that Lin Feng wasn't a Earth LV8 expert at all. Lin Feng forced himself to calm down and asked, "Is there any way to stop it?" Dong Zhuo sucked in a deep breath and shook his head. "It can't be helped. The misty ice is the coldest ice in the world. Below Saint Ruler, even the legendary experts of the 9th layer of the Earth probably can't stand up to it easily. However, the 9th layer of the Earth is extremely fast, so no one has ever been injured by the misty ice. It's not that there's really no way, it's just..." Shin Tong bit the corner of her lips. "There's no difference whether there's a way or not. The only thing that can stop the misty ice is the legendary mature earth fire, also known as the misty heavenly fire." As soon as she finished speaking, Nono shouted, "Boss, it's too late." Then, Nono turned into a beam of light and let out a sharp cry. Chirp! Chapter 547. Nono flew away from Linfeng's shoulder and let out a sharp and high-pitched chirp. Chirp, that chirp carried a resolute will to die, and also a hint of farewell. It was a mournful cry that made one's heart ache. "Nono!" Lin Feng exclaimed, his eyes wide open. A moment of hesitation flashed across his eyes as he struggled in his heart. However, it was at this moment that Nono's body rapidly increased in size, becoming like a small mountain. Gray-white feathers, rainbow-colored tail, cold and emotionless eyes, and a terrifying aura that made one's soul tremble. Nono in battle mode released an indescribable strange charm. Chirp! Nono looked back at Lin Feng and the others with reluctance and longing, but more than that, there was a sense of farewell. The next moment, it opened its big mouth and spat out a strange grayish-white light. As soon as the strange grayish-white light appeared, it caused the surrounding space to distort and the flow of time to change. Everything seemed to have stopped, and an instant felt as long as a century. The dense ice that was rapidly approaching from all directions actually slowed down, becoming slower and slower, as if someone had used a tremendous force to bind it. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. After 3 seconds, that strange grayish-white light suddenly exploded, like the moment when the world's most beautiful flower bloomed. The surrounding world disappeared. Only the grayish-white light and the grayish-white figure were left in this world. Boom! Then, an earth-shattering explosion suddenly appeared. Countless dense ice, some of it evaporated and turned into nothingness, while the other part was pushed back by a terrifying force and collided with the dense ice behind, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. The surrounding space was shattered into pieces. Numerous black hole-like spatial rifts filled the surroundings, emitting waves of heart-palpitating auras. At this moment, Nono seemed to have lost its vitality. Its body shrunk rapidly until it was no different from an ordinary bird. The grayish-white light all over its body dimmed, and its spirit was dispirited. It even fell down with a whoosh. Nuon Nua! Lin Feng screamed in surprise and flew over at lightning speed. Before Nono fell into the black holes, Lin Feng arrived first and caught it. Jing Ting and Huang Wenbing also shouted anxiously, "Nono!" They immediately flew over, ignoring the black holes around them. Shun Tong and Dong Zhuo looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They didn't expect that this inconspicuous bird-like demon beast that had been following Lin Feng would explode with such terrifying destructive power. One had to know that it was the dense ice. Nono's terrifying destructive power had directly destroyed a part of the dense ice. This was something that many Earth Stage 8 and even Stage 9 experts could not do. What a powerful demon beast! Their expressions were extremely solemn, and their hearts were trembling with fear. After hesitating for a moment, the two of them also flew towards Nono. From this moment onwards, they no longer dared to underestimate Nono. This seemingly harmless and beautiful bird-like demonic beast actually possessed such terrifying strength. Perhaps even an ordinary complete Circle Earth Saint Realm expert might not be able to withstand its attack. One could only imagine how terrifying it was. Lin Feng held Nono in his hand. He could no longer feel its life force. There was no temperature, no heartbeat, and no breath. It was like a dead object. Nono! Lin Feng's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Suddenly, he clenched one hand into a fist and punched himself in the chest. His expression was extremely ferocious, and he looked like a bloodthirsty beast. However, he let out a heart-wrenching roar, "Ah!" A sorrowful mood instantly infected everyone present. His voice sounded like he was weeping blood. Scenes of the past appeared in his mind. From the moment he signed the equality contract with Nono, Nono had accompanied him step by step as he grew up, witnessing his strength step by step. From the small Jianglong County, to Twin Dragons Town, to Jingmen City Province, Zhao State, Despair Prison, and even the entire Greenwood Continent, Xingfeng Plain, and Suiyang region. Nono had never left his side. It had weathered countless storms and survived countless dangers with him. In his heart, Nono was definitely not a contracted demon beast. It was an extremely close younger brother, a younger brother who shared the same origin. Extreme sadness and pain occupied every inch of Lin Feng's heart. To Lin Feng, Nono was irreplaceable. Even if Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, and his younger brother Lin Yun were added together, their importance couldn't compare to Nono. Nono's existence had a special meaning to Lin Feng. At this moment, his heart was bleeding. His heart was filled with pain and sadness, but more than that, it was regret and self-blame. Because of a moment of hesitation, Nono had died. In other words, he had single-handedly caused Nono's tragic death. To him, who valued Nono so much, this was a cruel blow. If he could, he would have given his life in exchange for Nono's survival. His sadness infected everyone. Wisps of willpower leaked out uncontrollably, amplifying Lin Feng's emotional contagion. Everyone could indirectly feel his pain. Shun Tong and Dong Zhuo exchanged a glance. The wisps of willpower caused them to reaffirm their judgment of Lin Feng. No, Linfeng's voice was trembling. At some point, tears had fallen down his cheeks. Men didn't cry easily. Huang Wenbing and Jing Ting had known Linfeng for a long time, but this was the first time they had seen him cry. In the past, no matter what happened, Linfeng was always calm and collected. He was so calm that people couldn't help but wonder if he was a machine. But now, he finally panicked and couldn't calm down. It was obvious how important Nono was to him. Jing Ting bit her lips and comforted in a low voice, "Linfeng, Nono might not be dead yet. We can find those famous pill masters to save Nono." Huang Wenbing was still in shock. He had heard Nono say that it had a powerful innate skill that even Linfeng, his boss, might not be able to block. He didn't believe it because Nono had never used it. But now, he finally believed it. The power of this skill was so great that it made people's hair stand on end. So Nono didn't lie to me. It's really that powerful. Huang Wenbing took a deep breath. When he heard Jing Ting's comforting words, Huang Wenbing suddenly came to his senses. His heart ached, but he had no choice but to pretend that nothing had happened. He even said in a seemingly relaxed tone, "That's right, boss. We have to have faith in Nono. How could it die so easily? Don't forget that it's a mutated divine beast. It has countless tricks up its sleeve. Maybe this is a special method to make itself sleep temporarily and then slowly recover." When he said the word sleep, Linfeng's eyes lit up. Nono's appearance really fit the description of sleep. He forced himself to calm down and said, "Even if I have to find all the pill masters in the world, I will find a way to save Nono." Jing Ting and Huang Wenbing nodded vigorously. "Yes, we will." In the valley below, a white figure was looking at Linfeng and the others in the air with astonishment. That beast! Bai Zhanfeng was very shocked. He didn't even care that some of the ice he had painstakingly collected had been destroyed. It can actually destroy the ice. Nono's performance really shocked him. Although he could see that Nono was extraordinary, he didn't expect Nono to be so extraordinary. But what a pity! He shook his head regretfully, then stretched out his hands and spread out his fingers, once again manipulating the power of law around him. Strands of power of law revolved around the array, and after being amplified by 10 times, he was barely able to control the remaining ice to launch another attack. Nono seemed to be dead, but his real target was Linfeng. As long as Linfeng wasn't dead, even if everyone else died, it was meaningless to him. In an extremely prosperous city in the Divine Wood Manor, a figure wearing a metal mask was walking slowly on the street. Suddenly, he stopped. His expression shook, and his expression changed greatly. At that moment, a terrifying aura that could change the color of heaven and earth erupted from his body. It instantly swept across the entire city. Even the vast area around the city was affected by that aura. The nearby powerhouses, whether they were at the 5th or 6th stage of the Earth stage, or even the 7th stage of the Earth stage, were all shocked. Their eyes were filled with fear. In the next moment, his figure disappeared. In just a few breaths' time, he appeared at the teleportation array. A sect disciple guarding the teleportation array wanted to ask, but before he could say anything, he was slapped to the side. Then, a cold and emotionless voice said, "Scram." The figure flashed again and disappeared from the teleportation array. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.